guy in the voice just like he goes Ultra, and it's like,
for
man,
like 13 seconds.
Could you just imagine how much fun that was in the booth? Okay, Tom, for a half an hour we're gonna record this Ultra thing. Half an hour? Why?
For one word?
Yeah, well they have like 6 different versions, and it's all like versions of I don't know. That would have been so much fun, and he just goes for it too.
Yeah.
I don't want to like
gets after.
I don't want to yell and then echo the whole house and then have your neighbors be like, "Yo, these guys, they're insane. We need to."
I'll shatter some glass. I can't. You're getting loud. No, I used to play Killer Instinct 2 in our arcade cabinet. My parents used to take me to Adventureland in Altoona, Iowa, which is like a lame version of Valley Fair.
Yeah.
But I was a pretty sheltered kid, I guess, because I thought Adventureland was the hotel. Like, I thought that was Adventureland. Because they had 2 pools and 2 arcades, and I was like, kid in a fucking
That sounds pretty baller, man.
Yeah, no, and I'm terrified of heights, so I was like, yeah, this is fucking dope. And then I found out that there's an amusement park, and I'm like, oh, shit.
Well, that wasn't as fun as I wanted. Can we go back to the arcade?
Yeah.
God, my poor parents, anytime we took a road trip anywhere, and we always had to take road trips anywhere, we'd get stuck all the way through like the Bible Belt. For some reason, it has the best in gas station arcades ever.
Yeah.
God, Cruising USA was my shit.
Yeah, what's up, everyone? The show kind of already started. This is Brandon and Kyle, our extra special guest, Ron. And this is...
Planet Astro.
Perfect. Planet Astro, episode 3. Today we're going to talk about life and death a little bit, probably. I'm sure we'll talk about politics because we keep doing that.
Yeah, let's talk about politics every episode. This is a political podcast.
Nope, I'm gonna shut it down.
And a bunch of
I'm so sick of politics
and a bunch of other random shit. So to start us off with the whole life and death thing, how you guys feel about Stan Lee passing away?
Oh, dude.
Wow, I'm gonna say something really controversial and everybody's gonna hate me afterwards. Stan Lee lived to 95 years old. That's fantastic.
That's incredible.
You can't ask for better than that.
I mean, he looked old as fuck, but like he
looked great.
To do movie cameos at the level that he was doing them.
And he was speaking at all these cons left and right. And
what a fucking boss.
It's not like he died, bedside for 3 years and people wondering, is it going to be today? Is it going to... We just assumed he was going to pass sometime soon. And now this is the end of the cameos. Infinity War is the end.
Yeah.
Infinity War? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Crazy. I know some people were really hopeful to see Avengers 4. His cameo in that, but nope.
It's fine. You know what? They're gonna ruin it. Like 4 movies down the line, they're gonna be like, let's digitally insert him in there.
Oh god.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Do a Tupac hologram.
Yeah. Speaking of the whole like digital thing, did you guys know that? So Dio, like one of the metal gods of all time, they
what?
Dio, like the
Ronnie
guitar
James
guy.
Dio.
Okay.
No, what's their big song?
Holy Diver.
Holy Diver.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that song.
Anyways, there's this company who specializes in holograms, and they've booked like a full tour that's apparently already sold out of like the actual band with the hologram of him singing.
What?
I'm not for this. I just feel like it's, to me, there's something very special, and I'm going to opinionate the hell out of your show. I hope that's okay.
Absolutely.
But to me, there's something very special about someone's existence, since we're in the theme of life and death. Someone's existence has an effect on your being, and I think for me, David Bowie is the perfect example for that, where when he was alive, I felt like everything was wonderful. Every time I heard one of his songs, I was like, I can't wait to hear the next one. And now there's a finality to that. We can't hear the next one. It's over. But with Dio, you could probably, if you're going to hologram him, what's stopping you from picking like a dude who sounds just like him and then re-recording something else and then just like, having him perform?
Is it Warner that did that or Journey? Journey?
I don't remember.
One of those two
Probably
found
Journey.
somebody online. A little Asian. He's Asian, and the singer was white before. So initially, everyone was all pissed off for some reason.
And Queen tried it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there's like, oh dude,
Alice in Chains did it too.
I saw Bohemian Rhapsody. Such a good fucking movie.
It is
so good.
I don't know if I'm going to see it. I don't think I'm going to see it in theaters, just because I don't. I know, like, people like, oh, the death thing doesn't matter. I'm like, he died of AIDS, and he was such an important proponent of making people okay with AIDS.
Yeah, it touched on it a little bit, but probably didn't give it the time that it deserved.
Yeah.
I saw it in Dolby Atmos, a Dolby Cinema theater. Have you ever been to a Dolby Cinema theater? Fucking super cool, because they got, like, 10 tower speakers on each side wall and, like, 5 or 6 on the back and 2 rows of subs on the ceiling.
First thing I did when I went into an Atmos theater, I was like, fuck it, I need an Atmos receiver. I'm gonna get speakers. I got the speakers. Oh my god, does it make a difference? It's nowhere near as good as a theater.
Right.
Like Atmos, if you are an audio person, Atmos is a good reason to go see movies. It's phenomenal. I saw Blade Runner 2049 in an Atmos theater.
Nice.
That was so beautiful.
Even their software, just in Xbox, like it enhances the sound quite a bit.
Yeah. Gears of War 4 has support.
I fucking love Gears.
Overwatch has support.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Overwatch. I haven't tried Gears, but I've tried Overwatch. I've played a lot of Gears, but not with Dolby.
Yeah.
But,
Nice. I got YouTube comments up, so if you see me looking down, I'm just checking the chat.
No, I'm just gonna assume you've disengaged with me
Yeah, I
entirely.
don't give a fuck about either of you. What's my bitch up to? All right. Good.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, that's great. I think I know her. It's.
Oh fuck. All right.
ooh, she's a
I
cutie.
mean, I've done anything with her.
It's a different kind of chat.
Yeah, different.
It's,
We're also live on xvideos.com.
Yeah.
And livejasmine.
livejasmine.com.
Live leak. Somebody might die.
Right.
Probably gonna start casting the World Star Hip Hop in a few minutes.
Isn't it wild in like 2018 all the different ways we found to make money by entertaining people? Like there's a girl who literally takes different types of bread and rubs her face on it.
Yeah, I follow her on Instagram. Breadface Blog, I think is the name of
That's
her
her full-time job.
That's fucking insane.
Rubbing her face on bread and posting the pictures and videos on Instagram.
I don't know. I have a problem with entertainment is fantastic.
Yeah.
We have ruined everything. Not the creators do what, but they're a fact of life. People who sell themselves for money. Yeah, I'd do it. I'd sell out in a heartbeat. If you were like, Jesus, I'll give you $25,000 to do something ridiculous on television. I'm like, yeah, okay. You don't even have to qualify that. I'll do it. Rub your face on bread. Great. Yeah, that doesn't even sound painful. I'm in. But we look for it. We're fascinated by it. Like this woman rubs herself on bread. And then you read the comments. You're like, oh, you're nasty. Oh my God. Why do you... All she was doing was rubbing her face on bread. And the problem is that we keep taking this to extremes. So we invent Logan Paul or, these other people who, God, whatever we're doing on the internet to make money, I get it, but I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I'm too old for this shit.
There's some wild shit out there.
And I play video games on the internet for money. So it's not like, I'm just sitting here going, I'm disengaged from the thing. No, I'm doing stupidity too.
Oh, yeah. Perpetuate the cycle,
Absolutely.
man.
Is it a good thing that, like, there's outlets for people to make money like that? Or is it a sad thing for, like, human beings in general?
I watched a video of a guy. He was on YouTube. He posted a video on YouTube and said, hey, I almost got killed by the cops. I'll tell you the story on Twitch. And then he was on Twitch, live streaming on Twitch, and I don't know how that interconnection works. He's live streaming on Twitch, and it took 2 hours to tell the story of how he got pulled over by a cop. Nothing involved violence at all. The cop was just like, yo, I need your license and proof of insurance. I'll be right back. Comes back, gives him a ticket. That was it. That was the whole thing. It took him 2 hours to do it.
What a clickbaiting motherfucker.
Right. And then the whole time he was asking for money because he's got legal fees now. Of course he's got legal. He's got a fucking ticket.
Christ, man.
Right? And he makes $30,000 a month on YouTube.
What?
And his whole thing is he reacts to stuff on YouTube. That's it.
Reaction channels are fucking crazy too, because like then you get a whole nother level removed.
Yeah.
And like depending on what the content is, it's already not necessarily super original, and then you're just watching it and saying funny shit, which is cool. Like commentating is a thing. There's a genre for that. But in the whole... Go ahead.
No, sorry. I'm just reacting to your speech.
Yeah.
About commentary. No, God, it's not even commentary. It's not even commentary.
Yeah.
Somebody going...
It's like having an online friend who doesn't really interact with you.
Gosh, I'm really sorry. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. It was a trailer. I don't even like trailers. Trailers are evil. We can talk about that too.
Oh, I fucking hate trailers.
God, stop watching trailers.
On top of that, have you guys seen the movie Purge?
Yeah,
I was so fucking excited to see the first Purge because the trailer was amazing.
Yeah.
Every single moment worth watching happened in the trailer.
We have to turn around. Do you mean the first Purge movie or the movie called The First Purge?
Purge.
Okay.
The Purge?
Purge.
Because there was a movie, The Purge, and then there's, I can't remember the sequels, but then the fourth movie is called The First Purge.
The first Purge.
That's confusing.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the first movie in the series.
Okay.
It's about Bass Pro Shops. The first Purge.
Purge Pro Shops.
But yeah, people getting paid for crazy shit. Patreon, I don't know how much you guys know about that, but I think that's really cool. The guy, his name's Jack. I forget what his last name is, but the guy who founded Patreon, his whole ideology is that every creator should be paid what they're worth, which I think is super cool because obviously you've got people that are more mainstream and they break into the industry or they create a niche for themselves, but that there's a direct to creator service to be able to pay them. Like, obviously platforms like Twitch or YouTube, you can donate to the streamers, which is cool. But if they're not necessarily live streaming or they're doing something in a different fashion, it's kind of a broad spectrum way to fund the things that you're really interested in. And I think that's really awesome for creators that otherwise wouldn't necessarily be able to fit the mold or like leverage the YouTube algorithm if they don't fit into that. I think Patreon's really, really cool for that.
And it kind of brings something back that used to exist way back in the days of lords and kings and queens and shit, where somebody would be like, I really like Beethoven's music. I'd like to hire him to write music for me full time.
Yeah.
And John Dalland is a perfect example of that guy because he got bounced from country to country. He was British, and then I think he went to Italy and then Spain, and he just wasn't well liked in very many places for a long time. He was probably an asshole. But somebody was like, I really love your music. You do some beautiful stuff. Please write music for me. And you would like come live in their lordship and whatever, and he would just pay for that. And that didn't like you couldn't support yourself as an artist today, but it's getting better. Things like Patreon.
Yeah.
Although sometimes it's not better because I know a cosplayer. I don't want to name names because I'm not going to spill any tea. Ooh. But I know a cosplayer who does a Patreon, and like her whole thing is people over a certain donation level get certain perks, and it totally makes sense. Like, if she's going to do a live stream, only people over a certain donation level get the perk. Or if you do like $30 a month, she sends you a personalized Polaroid for you.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, at some point, where is this going beyond? Like, we're going beyond the concept of the patronage and more into like voyeurism, where you're introducing someone into your life for a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
Like, I'm on Twitch, and for the most part, I spend a lot of my time trying to be a very soothing person. Like, I try not to be angry, although sometimes I go on a political diatribe. But I do spend a lot of time going...
like you do.
Yeah. But I try to spend a lot of my time telling people, hey, it's okay. You whatever you are, whoever you are, whatever's going on, we can just relax for a minute, take a step back. You can talk about it. You can not talk about it. But for the time here, nothing has to be a problem.
Yeah.
And that's not how I am in real life.
Right.
It's a character. And I would like to be more like that character. And I think having people in my living room for that is part of the character, but I put up a green screen. I'm still walling my life off from you. And to have, like, for $30 a month, that I will do nothing but take Polaroids of myself. And that kind of crosses the line for me.
I see that.
And I can't say you shouldn't do it, but it becomes weird.
Yeah.
It becomes... I don't know. It's not even pornographic, but it's close.
It can get there.
It is close.
Approaching.
Yeah.
How have you seen, you said you'd like to be more like your character. How do you find that that's starting to influence you? Or are you starting to see changes that are made because of...
Yeah, and I was just having this moment with you yesterday because you guys were talking about Megan Fox. And
yeah. Yeah.
And she has toe thumbs, and it's cool, and like, it's not attractive to look at. I'm like, we can't, say, oh yeah, they're fine, whatever. But at the same time, it's something she was born with. She can't change it. You can't even get a surgery to change it. I'm sure she would, but she can't fix that. She could fix her acting.
Yeah.
She could fix that. And I think Megan Fox is gorgeous, and she's nice to listen to. Even I don't know if she ever wants to do music. I hope she doesn't, because it didn't work for Paris Hilton. But listening to her acting, I'm just like, there's a potential here. She has the potential to be, I think, a really, not talented, not great, but like a really solid actress. And I just don't think she puts the time in. And that's fine.
I agree with that.
That's her life. Whatever.
I don't know her personally, but it seems the results that are on screen seem like she hasn't put forth the effort too much. With
acting and on being on the big screen, you are the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. People would kill to be you. People with more talent than you weren't in the right place at the right time, or weren't working hard enough,
Didn't
or
have the
whatever.
right aesthetic.
Yeah, whatever it is, they're not in that spot because there's something that you had at the moment you needed to have it.
Mm-hmm.
And Megan Fox is there, and the fact that it doesn't feel like she's working to be there, it's kind of a sad thing.
Really disheartening to a lot of people who are really putting in the effort.
Definitely.
Yeah. We forgot to ask you, what do you want your intro music to be when you like come in?
You remember NERD?
Nerd.
Is that EDM?
Lemon. I pulled up in a lemon.
No,
That song.
it was a Rockstar. Starts off with fucking posers, and then there's a big drum break.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hit me.
We'll fucking edit that in and post.
Yes.
It'll sound
For
great.
sure.
Yes.
We're gonna do that.
Guaranteed intro music.
Got to pay the licensing fees and
You got it.
Yep.
You got money. No
Dude,
problem.
on top of the whole like acting thing and needing to like work super hard, I feel like there's a bunch of actors that aren't that good at acting. They're just like generally perceived as good people, so people want to see them.
Mark Wahlberg.
He's actually a good actor. I feel like only because he's not a great actor. He's a good actor. He can play multiple roles. There's a lot of bad actors out there, like Adam Sandler, who's one of my favorite actors, who plays the same guy every time.
Yeah.
Most of the time. I mean, you can argue he's not in like Spanglish, Little Nicky, whatever, but he's the same funny, like weird, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what? It's funny you should say that because I think Sandler can act. The problem is that he's in the producer role for all of the movies he does now.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
why wouldn't he just be able to do whatever he wants?
He's
Yeah.
just he said that too. He said, I'm just fucking around with my friends having a good time. If people like the movie, it's great.
Yeah.
If they don't.
I mean, I hate on the guy, but you can't hate on him for that because
No.
I would absolutely do the exact same thing. if
I
I
don't
was in
like.
his position.
I've seen the movies. I don't think they're funny, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Because you know what? He's having a good time, and if he's making money, Jesus, good man.
Yeah, good on him.
Speaking of not funny at all, Will Ferrell.
Oh God.
Hey, fuck you. What?
I hate Will Ferrell.
Well, we can roll that back to what you were asking. How I want the character to influence my life, and how I see it influencing my life is every time I turn around and I feel like I have something negative to say about somebody, I stop myself and make sure it's a critique and not just harassment or
Sure.
something mean.
Yeah, I go off on some shit sometimes where I'm just trash talking.
Yeah.
I definitely
Right.
I definitely need to do better about that.
I'm really bad with it because I don't know if I wasn't hugged enough as a kid or something, but when I drink any amount of alcohol and play games like Rocket League, which is already salty, like
Yeah, you
next
were
level
salty to begin with. You
Yeah.
were born salty.
Yeah.
I'm pretty chill in the real world,
Yeah.
but when I get in Rocket League Overwatch, I just become like demon possessed. Like I want to hurt these people, and it's probably some poor little kid who's just trying to have a good time. And I'm like, you suck. Learn to play Rocket League. Get good.
I can attest to that.
I think-
playing with you.
I think one of the interesting things about like when you're mean to someone, I think it's easy to be mean to someone. It's easy to train yourself to be mean to
Yeah.
someone. We do that probably starting in middle school, where it becomes like a popular thing to get mean at someone. But I think when you really get mean with someone, when you get angry, because you can get angry, I think that's a part of yourself that you see in someone that you're just angry with.
Projecting.
Yeah.
You're not mad at anyone but yourself.
I hate things about my dad because I see them in myself.
Yeah.
And then whenever I see that in someone else, immediately I'm just like, man, I fucking hate that guy. And then I have to stop back and go, wait, why do I fucking hate that guy?
Whoa. This is on me.
I'm looking in the mirror.
Right.
Yeah.
Shit.
No, and there's such a perpetuating cycle of that too, like kids being mean to kids in middle school,
Yeah.
and like it just rolls from generation to generation, and it oftentimes stems from older siblings or parents, you know, and it's just
And then we click, and then we start clicking up, and we break into groups that are based on maybe it's mutual interests, maybe it's hate of some other group, and usually it starts becoming hate of some other group, and we continue that on for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's sports teams,
Yeah.
what console you play on, or we all find a reason to hate everyone else.
It's straight tribalism.
And yeah, I mean, yeah. God, you know what? I'm gonna back that up a second because we're gonna get into politics.
don't do it.
Shut it down.
Shut it down.
That's
Shut it down.
This is not a political podcast.
I've actually gotten way better with my toxicity levels because I did something really creative.
You got banned from
I
Overwatch.
changed my name on Steam to Marley, which
Yeah.
is my the love
name
of my
the
life.
Marley and Me movie featuring.
It's also the name of a dog that I had, then loved and cherished, and meant everything to me.
Was the dog story about
Cute
you?
little
Was the
dog.
movie about you?
No,
Okay.
But the dog, so my dog's name was Marley. So I changed my name on Steam to Marley and my picture to a dog that looks just like her. So whenever I'm about to say something, I like subliminally notice it on the screen throughout my. I'm like, Marley wouldn't want me to say that to this person. Basically, I'm like, this is better to look at than I care about. Like whatever, you know. You gotta be reminded, like these people might have a Marley too, and whatever.
Yeah.
Or maybe that person is the Marley.
Maybe they're having a shit day.
Yeah.
And this is their way to have less of a shit day.
Here's the deal,
and I'm ruining it.
Yeah, you're right. Like, it's become so much more of a relaxation thing. But for me, like back in Gears of War 1, Gears of War 2 days, for whatever reason, it was just a nonstop shit-talking fest. Like, everybody was mean and saying the most vile shit to each other. And it was great. Like, I had a great time doing that. And now I play games personally, and I, like, rarely talk shit to anybody. And I don't know if it's, like, me adjusting and acclimating to the environment as the community grows, or why I don't find myself like having the same urge to shit talk somebody anymore.
I think there was an evolution that happened because you talk about Gears of War, and that was like the beginning of online multiplayer. Not the beginning, obviously, the genesis being like PC and then PS2, Dreamcast with whatever microphone situation they had going on there. But when we started. And I remember when we started PC game chatting, God, Counter-Strike was my first experience.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody said they're the most vile shit ever. But I think it was just kind of this outlet, like an expression. Yeah. Like, hey, I can do this. It's like the first time you learned how to swear in second grade.
Yeah.
And you were like, Mom, fuck you. And she's like, what?
Did you just say?
Right. And it just kind of felt like it was something you were all doing it together. There was no, I think the problem was that there was no, animosity there. Everybody was kind of in it together.
Yeah.
We were all participating. I'm saying these awful things. I'm playing this awful music. And at some point, for a lot of people, it became more hateful. And it was just like, oh, this is the place I get to go and say the F word? Great. Oh, I can say the N word and no one will know who I am? Yes. And they go there and they want to hurt other people.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it reversed on itself. And now if you're that person, everybody's like, dude.
Yeah, bro. And I'm very like anti PC culture at my core. I think because a lot of my gaming upbringing, and I don't like to see people overreact, or I'm very much there's no boundaries or limits to anything. People can like pretty much for the most part say whatever they want about anything they want.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that if you start isolating things and saying no, this is off limits, then like where does that stop, right? So it's either all or nothing for me for jokes. And so I hate to see, especially for that realm where it was like this sanctuary where everybody could go and like, again, no limits. Like, and now it's transitioned and kind of followed along with culture in everyday life where things are becoming more PC. The thing that used to be the Wild West is now becoming more PC too.
Yeah.
Kind of like breaks my heart a little bit deep down. Younger me is kind of sad, but I don't think it's a bad thing.
I totally feel that. It's hard because we grew up, and it's kind of like this is going to be a terrible metaphor, but it's like we grew up playing, full contact football, and now you have kids, and they're like, we have to play flag football because full contact football's been banned. And you're like, but I had so much fun playing full contact football.
Right. And
you remember that, you connect to that. You go, man, I never meant it harm. Like I never meant to hurt anybody. It was just full contact football was more fun than flag football.
Right.
But at the same time, you remember it well. Timmy had his arm broken and like for 6 months couldn't itch his cast, and everybody made fun of him. Yeah. Couldn't wipe his ass, whatever the situation was. And it was a terrible time for him, and he's like, man, I fucking hate full contact football. Yeah. And it sucks because it is an overreaction. PC culture is an overreaction. All the SJW stuff and whatever, it's an overreaction, but it's kind of a necessary one. Yeah. It's the rubber band snapping back. At some point, we had to come back and say, well, we can't be reasonable. We have to go too far, because then you can kind of meet in the middle later.
For sure.
So I think it's a good thing. Really.
Traditional negotiating tactic. Classic negotiating tactic.
Yeah.
Just
push you too far and see
start
you
a little high and then bring it back down.
Yeah.
Boy, that was a good chat about afterlife that we just had there.
Yeah.
Talking about people dying.
Well, that's everything that happens after Stanley's life.
I miss you, David Bowie.
I feel the same way about Chris Cornell.
Yeah. That was a good...
I actually paid this guy's girlfriend to start drawing a portrait, or painting a portrait for me.
Yeah.
So, it's like the only musician that's like made me feel awful. The only two like Hollywood deaths that have seriously bothered me is Robin Williams, which I almost started crying because he felt like an uncle basically.
Yeah.
Watching him on screen growing up, and then Chris Cornell because I grew up listening to Soundgarden, Audio Slave, just like the whole grunge scene. He was kind of the face of it before Kurt Cobain, and you could argue that he was even like more important than I would argue that he was because I don't know if Kurt Cobain would have got the traction if he didn't have like the track to jump on.
Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna argue with you because you know better than I do.
Well,
So.
it's an opinion, so it doesn't really matter. But
I would agree with you that musically is a better influence, but Kurt Cobain like normalized an entire movement.
He's such an icon.
do you think? Okay, so I love Kurt Cobain. He's not the greatest guitarist ever.
Terrible.
He makes really cool
Awful.
sounding guitar sounds.
Yeah.
He writes really catchy songs. They're not even necessarily that good of songs, but I love listening to them. I love that band. Do you think that Kurt Cobain would be half as big as he was if he hadn't martyred, basically?
I think it would have been bigger. One of the things that I really liked about Kurt Cobain is he was really, really clever about how he was writing things. And listening to his music as a teenager, I was just like, I don't know what's going on, but okay, we'll go with it. It sounds different. It's loud. I hate my parents. Fuck everybody.
Fuck you, Dad.
But listening back, it's just like there's a lot of like social commentary there about, you know, I'm dealing with pain and dealing with not fitting in and dealing with all of these other things. And I think he would have evolved to be a better songwriter, honestly, over time.
Yeah.
Would he have been prolific?
Yeah.
Maybe not, but...
It's so interesting to see how the scarcity and rarity that death creates and like how that rocketeers people to stardom and icon status.
Yeah, which is why you shouldn't make holograms of them.
Yeah.
At all.
There's no rarity anymore. You're destroying everything that their death created.
Yeah.
Well, grunge in general is just like crazy, but because like you think about the stuff that was playing before that, it was like some '80s synth shit.
Well, I mean, grunge was built out of like a weird alternative thing that happened. Like REM was kind of at, I think, the forefront of that weird alternative thing that was happening. Late '80s, post new wave, and then grunge was the byproduct no problem of like a rock, like a hard rock, plus that weird alternative, just like right in the middle.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's one of those beautiful things about music is music is constantly evolving. Mm-hmm. And we always get to see, sometimes the evolution is huge in a sound side.
Yeah.
Like just listening to what happened in the last 10 years, and I don't like dubstep, but everything fucking had dubstep in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Like a country song with dubstep.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. The
Great.
bleeding of genres.
Why not?
The whole like call and response mechanic of a song, like you learn in elementary school,
Yeah.
right? I think kind of exists on a meta scale with music entirely, and that's how like new genres and progress is made, where you know something exists and then somebody provides an answer to that, and it's kind of a call and answer at a grand scale.
Anytime somebody says, "Turn that shit off," I don't want to listen to hip hop. What they're saying is, I don't want to listen to progress. I don't want to hear something that makes me uncomfortable. And then grunge was that. Later alternative was that. God, we had a weird, regrettable alternative hip hop scene. Like 311 was the perfect example of how to do it like fun, and then you end up with like Limp Bizkit.
Oh yeah. Calling out names,
Right.
taking shots.
Well, I mean,
you got Korn out of it. They're pretty good.
Korn was great.
I was
That
talking
new
about
metal.
Limp Bizkit the other day, and like how that name for me is synonymous with just not good music.
Yeah.
And like is has a negative connotation for me. But like thinking about it, if they come onto the scene and their name is Limp Bizkit, that's a funny fucking name.
It is.
Right? Like that is a great
And
name.
there were a couple of really clever ones, like the one where he wrote a song where he counted how many times he said "fuck" in the song.
Yeah, hot dog flavored
Yeah,
water.
that was funny.
And the chocolate starfish.
But what was not funny was that music is really bad. It hasn't aged well, which is different from Korn, which challenged you with lots of dissonance and minor keys and things that weren't being done in the new metal scene at the time.
Jonathan Davis is ridiculous with his like talent.
Yep.
His ceiling is just crazy. He can play every single instrument. He's one of the first guys to do like electric bagpipes, and people give a shit, want to hear it. He's just he's always like, I feel like musicians in that genre, you like have to have depression to be able to tap into that darkness, and his brain is just fucked. So he like, it's like if there's a language in his brain, he transfers that into the language of music, basically. Like everyone does, honestly. But to get those like demonic sounds that are also beautiful at the same time, it's just insane.
You say that, and I remember the first Korn song I was ever exposed to was called "All Day I Dream About Sex."
All day, I love that song.
Yeah, and there was a girl from Florida who from Boca Raton, Florida. I think her name was Jen. She introduced me to like, oh yeah, you should listen to Korn. I love this song Adidas. And I was like, okay.
Speaking of girls that listen to weird music like that, how about that ICP Juggalo Juggalette shit? I've never understood that even a little bit. How you can like
I totally get it.
Start a clan around a
totally.
pain.
I had an old boss who was a juggalo. Like he had a hatchet man tattoo on his arm.
Yeah.
And he eventually became a general manager of a retail store, which was kind of crazy to me because he would like walk around with it exposed. Which I mean, cultures are different in different stores, but like. Those are some hard motherfuckers. There's some really awesome documentaries on them.
Can you remain that?
Well, so it's interesting. Juggalos are classified as a hate group.
Yeah.
By the U.S. government.
Yeah.
The FBI recognizes Juggalos.
What
did that happen just a couple years ago? That they like escalated.
God, it had been like 10 years ago or something.
It's not like a supremacist group because it's like every race, whatever.
Well, the thing is, Juggalos are predominantly white, and they're anti-hip hop culture.
Aren't they hip hop?
But it's hip hop, and here's the problem: Juggalos. I totally get where Juggalos are coming from. These are people who are disenfranchised with pretty much all other aspects of society. I don't want to look like a normal human being, so I'm going to dress in these clothes that you wouldn't dress in. I'm going to put face paint on so there's no mistaking who I am, and then like the little tattoo so that we can identify each other in public without drawing attention if you don't know what it is. So these are all the makings of a hate group.
Yeah.
They love Faygo.
Yeah. They love Faygo.
The soda?
Yeah, dude. So
do they, or are they told to love it?
No, they love it. It's legitimate.
I don't know if that's a fucking...
I knew a guy who was a rap producer in Minneapolis, and he represented one Juggalo. And he did, I can't remember the name of the dude, and I don't really want to give him any, like... Because this dude was violent, and that's the thing, is there are some violent people in the Juggalo Nation. I think they call it the Juggalo Nation.
Do you have to be violent to be
No,
part of that?
no, a lot of them are super peaceful.
Don't act like you're not a Juggalo.
Oh, totally.
I think it's called the
Actually, I was a clown in hip-hop. I was crumping.
Yeah.
So
Crumping. I remember.
Yeah, crumping.
I forgot about that.
Crumping is not fascinating too. Is people are like, I want to dance, but I want to be expressive when I dance. And then there's crumping competitions, and a friend of mine was like, "How do you have a competition?" And the competition is to see how many unique things you can do without repeating yourself.
Yeah. And
then still be productive in some way. And I was like, that's fascinating stuff. And if you look at it, if you look at everything that it's fascinating instead of I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like Juggalo culture. I mean, I love professional wrestling.
Yeah.
But whenever I see Juggalos in the ring, I'm just like, I know how this is going to end. Somebody's going to get hit in the head with a fucking fluorescent light bulb.
Yeah. It's amazing, professional wrestling, how well maintained and like how large that universe is, where it's not like, I'd say probably 10% of the population, is super into that.
Yeah.
Whereas compared to other like major broadcast events like football or traditional sports, like it's kind of like a soap opera.
It is. It's the longest running soap opera.
It's like a live action movie.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to listen to what happened to, like, you say 10% of the population is into it. Back in the early 90s to the late 90s, well, 94 to 98, everyone was watching professional wrestling. They were rating, like, the two shows, WCW Monday Nitro and WWF Raw, were a combined 12 on the rating scale.
Wow.
And that's, like, between the two shows, that's the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Every Monday. People were watching the Super Bowl every month. It's fucking insane.
It was way better back then too.
Well,
you don't think so?
No, unfortunately, so I like the action better, and I like the storytelling better, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it. But at the same time, people were getting hurt on a scale that we weren't understanding.
1998, when Undertaker threw Mankind off.
Oh my God! How did he not die?
That man is broken.
He was broken. God, he passed out when he was thrown through the cage.
If you haven't seen that clip, it's legitimately impressive. the feat of athleticism by Mick Foley to not be knocked unconscious.
He was knocked unconscious.
Well, yeah, to not fucking die or
Yeah,
break his
die.
spine. Like, he lost teeth.
He had teeth lodged through his face.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That man doesn't feel pain.
Again, I'm not. Ron's a huge wrestling fan. I'm not necessarily a wrestling fan, but coming from somebody who's not a wrestling fan, that shit is insane.
There was a match that he had with The Rock. I think a little bit later than that. I think 2 years later, where The Rock hit him in the head with a chair, unprotected head chair shots, 14 times in a row.
Oh.
Yeah. With a steel chair.
Dude,
and it's like, those are really steel chairs.
Mick Foley is a god, man.
Yeah.
He is so committed.
The fact that he hasn't turned around and murdered anybody is the only thing that keeps the WWE in business. Because, like, looking at Jimmy Superfly Snuka, who murdered his girlfriend back in the 80s, it's probably a concussion-related thing. Same thing with Chris Benoit. Which is something we don't like to talk about. That was a sad fucking thing that happened.
His whole family.
But that was probably from concussion-related symptoms.
I was a huge fan of Chris Benoit before that.
He was incredible.
We've got, who's the Vikings linebacker?
Brock Lesnar.
Kendrickson? Is that his name? Eric Kendrickson?
That's not even my world.
Yeah, there's a Vikings linebacker who was like kind of losing his mind outside of one of his teammates' hotel rooms and was like begging to get in. And I don't know the full story. I just remember hearing about it, but he was kind of going crazy with his girlfriend. And there was a couple weeks where he was like not playing because they were seriously concerned with his mental health. And that's probably in the same line, like CTE, concussion stuff. So
we don't know what the effects of those things are. We don't. And
it's too short.
The fact that the WWE has finally started to admit that concussions are a legitimate thing. Mm-hmm. And they haven't forced anyone to work with a concussion in a long time. Becky Lynch on this last Raw. I don't even watch Raw. I just hear about it because I'm enough of a wrestling fan to be exposed to all of those things. Mm-hmm. She took a really bad clothesline and she ended up with a broken nose and a concussion. And she's been taken off the pay-per-view for this Sunday, I think it was. And like it was going to be the biggest match of the year in the women's division. And it was just this huge deal. But they finally said, concussions are a serious thing. Let's be careful. So.
It's crazy how like boxing and MMA is obviously that's on a different plane from wrestling, which is to a degree staged, right, and scripted. And some would argue that that's bleeding into MMA, that there's scripting aspects to that too. But like how many shots people take, and obviously the ref is there to keep people from sustaining hopefully any lifelong injuries and any serious injuries, but those guys get real fucked up real bad, and it's just everybody's okay with it, and they're making a fuckload of money, so I guess
I would say MMA is actually safer.
Really?
Because, the contact that happens is usually very, very short. If someone is outmatched, like on the striking game, I think they call it striking. In the striking game, if someone's outmatched, it becomes very obvious very quickly, and they're going to get knocked the fuck out really quickly because the pads are firmer than with boxing. And I actually used to box for a little while, and they're soft. Boxing gloves are soft, and getting smacked around with a boxing glove 50 times from some guy who doesn't know how to hit you is not so bad. But when somebody really knows how to throw a punch, they can throw their whole weight behind it. You've got this really soft contact, but now it's going to rattle your brain.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually more dangerous long term.
They do get more concussions. In the MMA, the refs are way faster than they used to be stopping them. Because if they're getting pummeled and they're not like intelligently defending their face, they're going to stop it because they're going to die, basically.
In boxing, we used to call it heart way back in the day. And back in the 80s, late 80s, especially with the advent of Mike Tyson. Mike fucking Tyson changed the game. And we can talk about Mike Tyson all day if we want to, because he was probably the perfect boxer. Mike Tyson, when he came onto the scene, he would knock people out in the first round cleanly. It wasn't even like maybe he can get back up. Maybe, just let the... No, the guy was fucking out. He wasn't going to come back from it.
Stick a fork in that bowl.
Yeah, exactly. He's not coming back. And then toward the early 90s, you're like, hey, maybe we should really check to make sure that the other guys are good to go.
Yeah.
Because there were guys who would get knocked out, wake up before the 10 count, get back up, and then get back in the fight, and they were not okay. But we're still letting them fight. I've seen... in my life, 2 people die in the ring. Not in person, on television. Because we didn't know when to stop the fight.
Yeah.
And so now when they stop the fight, people would say too early, but I mean, it's clear that when people get outclassed in the ring, that's enough for the sport. We don't need somebody to prove that they can die in the ring.
Right.
But MMA doesn't have that problem yet.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna get choked out one day.
Yeah, and that definitely cycles back to like people on the internet getting paid to do weird shit. Fighting people, while I think it is very like caveman-esque, like to roots of human nature and just like anger and being able to have an outlet for that. You could take it back to the Romans and gladiators, right, in the Colosseum, and like having them fight animals for entertainment. It's just fucking crazy as humans. And I think it's probably less on that plane of like physical harm and people dying, and now more so just like really niche, weird, out there shit. But I think the human race, for its entirety, has been finding really fucking weird ways to entertain each other, and it's not just necessarily like a new thing.
I mean, we could even go back to movies, I guess. Torture porn. You remember when torture porn was a thing?
We talking like BME Pain Olympics?
Well, no. Well, that was a different thing. Nobody got paid for those things. Thanks for reminding me that existed.
For those of you who aren't familiar, this is very graphic.
Don't Google that one.
Yeah, you don't want to. Should I tell them right now?
Yeah.
Should we tell them? Let's tell them. If you don't want to hear about this, I'd skip about 15, 20 seconds ahead. There were gentlemen who would segment their penis off with rubber bands and then slice it into sushi rolls.
Whether or not those were real, we'll
There's
never know.
No way to tell.
But that was good enough.
Plenty of that
I would like to believe they're not real.
I would like to as well. But
Did you ever take the offended challenge on Encyclopedia Dramatica?
No.
That was like a fucking page full of pictures and GIFs. It was like, at a reasonable rate, would take you probably like 10 minutes to scroll through, and just shit from that, like Tub Girl. Yeah, a lot of people had a lot of trouble finishing that, and
I don't know. I've seen all of Two Girls, One Cup. I'm good.
yeah.
I think I'll be okay.
I'm so desensitized to that shit, and I don't know why.
I do. We grew up with it. It was one ups. The internet was in one-upsmanship mode.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you think Tub Girl's bad?
Oh yeah.
It didn't take very long to get over it, man.
No.
It was like 4 videos, then you're like,
Yep.
Yeah.
the world is really, really kind of evil.
I'm
it's
more
scary.
upset about what people do to each other than I am what they do to themselves, or consensually.
For sure.
So I get upset when people I see people be mean to each other in public, and I'm more upset about that than I am about some dude chopping his dick off.
Yeah. Go ahead. It's your body.
Yep.
Use it when you need it.
To piggyback on that, isn't it crazy how fucking mean little kids are to each other online nowadays?
Well, yeah, maybe. I kind of look at it as like the porn thing. Do you remember To Catch a Predator?
Yeah. Dude,
Chris
I
Hansen.
love Chris Hansen.
Chris Hansen.
Go ahead and take a seat.
I like what Chris Hansen did for the world and for the internet was wonderful, and I really hope he never stops doing it, because he's still doing it for an internet TV show and his new thing is called Hansen versus Predator. So they still do it.
Nice.
So it's cool. But one of the things that they used to do was the guy would always send like a porn video or sometimes it was a picture of his dick, but sometimes like a porn video or pictures of what he had in mind. And have you ever tried this sex position? No, what's that? And then he'd send a picture of that on the internet. And that used to be a thing where people you're exposing a kid to these awful things, but it's become such a reality now. Like, oh, are you 12 years old? You've seen porn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of your life. That's what it is. And I think it's the same thing. Now, because of the access to everything, porn. And one day, I think, with speech recognition, it's going to get better. Because we'll just, block people. Like, hey, there are people playing who are under 15 years of age. We have to be realistic about this shit, too. Because there are fucking 8-year-olds playing on Xbox Live.
Yeah, and
Microsoft.
doing well.
Yeah.
Honestly, beating people.
They were grown in this test tube of online gameplay. We've just adapted.
Yeah.
And
Molded by it.
right.
I didn't see the light.
And they knew that came along with the N-word and all these other, I have been called shit that I would never have imagined. I was in the Army, and I've had drill sergeants call me shit that I'd never heard before in my life. And now playing online. And I don't even like to play online because of, oh my God, why are you? You sound like a little girl. You're so young. You sound like a little girl.
Dude, I was there. I still sound like a little girl.
You sound fine. Although when he gets angry, sometimes he sounds like a little girl.
I do.
Dude.
Yeah.
God damn.
Very whiny.
Mother trucker, dude, that
Yeah.
hurt like a butt cheek on a stick. You know what I'm saying?
We need that. We need those controls for toxicity, especially. I think we need to have an intelligent engine. And people are gonna be like, "Well, that infringes on freedom of speech and my First Amendment rights." And they're like, "No, shut the fuck up.
You're not
Read the
adult
First
yet.
Amendment. Being censored by a company doesn't mean you're being violated.
Yeah.
That's period.
Yeah.
But we need to cut that down because kids are learning those things as just normal responses, and I think that's turning into road rage.
I've never ever had an issue with road rage. I don't get pissed ever. I mean,
Really?
that's not so.
What are you, fucking Superman? You want
I very hardly get pissed off while driving, and I have a really huge disconnect with people who get fucking just crazy mad. And like the first couple of times that I've met people like that, I don't know if it's because my parents are just chill when driving and they never get mad. I wasn't taught to get mad when driving. I grew up in like a smaller town, so there's less shit to get mad at.
Mm-hmm.
But like the first couple of times I saw someone freak the fuck out and like hit their horn and like yell and shit, startled the shit out of me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like you're from Iowa, do you get pissed?
Yeah. Like I can get into it a little bit. I'm a bit of an elitist, and I hate how inefficiently people drive. It makes me so angry. I really like driving late at night. Up here, the speed limits are higher as opposed to Iowa. Well, I mean, on the interstate, it's fucking pretty universal. But when the roads are super clear, I love driving. And I used to not have a 9 to 5, and now I do, and that's soul crushing.
Yeah.
But yeah, where I'm from in Iowa, is like took me the same amount of time to get to work every day, regardless of what time it was. Sometimes you get stuck behind a tractor and on a single lane highway, and then you're fucked. But other than that, now it's pretty straightforward. Up here, people, I don't know if it's because they're not paying attention. They're expecting to be stuck in traffic, so they're on autopilot. They're on their phones. I don't know what the fuck it is. People don't know how to drive. They're so inefficient, and I'm sure that's true everywhere. It's miles worse in LA, I'm sure. But holy fuck, I get so angry.
I don't think it's inefficiency. I think it's a lack of consideration.
Yeah.
I think anytime you see anybody do something asshole-ish, it's because they were thinking, me first, fuck everyone else.
Yeah, I got someplace to be, and you don't.
Yeah. Well,
I
maybe
think-
you do, but fuck you anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think a lot of problems stem from lack of consideration.
So, all too many. Let's not get political.
Yeah.
No politics.
No fucking politics. I rarely honk at somebody,
Yeah.
like, unless they're not paying attention and me honking is going to do something.
I rev my engine at people.
Do you?
Yeah.
Boom, boom. I usually am of the assumption that, like, oh yeah, they're going to realize that they fucked up. That's fine. I just get mad in my car sometimes.
I get road rage, but my road rage is never violent. What bothers me is that people have this 2-ton vehicle that they've been licensed to drive, and they just fling it around like
It's a fucking lethal weapon.
it's a weapon.
Man.
It's a weapon. You know, if people were like this with guns, with the way they are with cars, we would have locked that shit down immediately.
Yeah.
We still need to. No political stuff.
No
I'm sorry.
political
I'm sorry. Just
Don't take away my guns.
no. I think I'm a gun person. I love guns. Without getting political, I love shooting. I'm a huge fan. I'd love to get back into shooting sports
I
because I used to do
fucking
that stuff.
shot a shotgun once when I was like 6 years old at my friend's farmhouse, and I missed the pigeon and I cried.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I blamed it on, but I think it was part that I fucking missed and I sucked and I wasn't holding the gun right, so it hurt.
Yeah.
Being a little bitch.
It does hurt. Shotguns suck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
First time I shot a shotgun was a 20 gauge.
yeah, that was
and
mine too.
My grandpa wanted me to shoot a crow because they were fucking something up. I don't know, like his corn or something. Something
Goddamn
stupid in the
fucking
garden.
crows
But
eating my corn.
I was like, I'm not gonna hit this, like whatever. And then I shot it and smoked it, and I felt awful like the whole day for taking the life from this bird, just trying to do bird stuff.
Just try to do birds.
Oh man.
Man,
I
fuck
don't
this.
like killing
This is
animals
such a
at all.
great life. I love doing birds. Ah!
I'm just gonna eat some corn quick
Yeah.
with the other birds.
I don't know. To me, I've never had an issue. I've killed squirrels with BB guns because the squirrels are, if you're out in the country, you know, actually both of you know, they're the worst. Squirrels are the worst. They will fuck up your garden. They'll tear up everything you've ever loved, and then they'll get inside your attic and
Yeah.
run around like crazy for 20 hours. Shit everywhere.
Fucking rodents.
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
But so I've killed a couple of squirrels. I've never killed a deer. I have no no need to. In my life, I'm just like, I can't go hunting.
Yeah.
There's all this beautiful meat sitting here in the grocery store.
I mean, I got mad respect for people that live off the fat of the land or whatever.
That's awesome.
Out in the woods by themselves. Part of me wants to do that, right? To disconnect and to retroactively set myself back in time and just go live and not have to deal with all the stresses. There's a lot of people who are really of the opinion that the reason why we have, such high suicide rates or whatever is because there's so many stresses that as basic humans we weren't meant to process and we weren't meant to necessarily interact with, and we haven't really caught up mentally with the changes that society has faced.
You mean debt?
Yeah.
It's probably debt.
Debt is the source of all.
Jesus Christ.
But no, I think they're just going back to that. You'd obviously be healthier physically with the physical demands, you know, and working to meet those. So I think a simpler life oftentimes is better. I really love the conveniences of the modern world, and I probably wouldn't survive. I'd die in 4 days. Don't think that I'm talking like I'm gonna fucking do it and do it well. No, I just think that I have ideals about how nice that would be to unplug.
You're not alone, and now a lot of people are doing it. I guess the big trend now is millennials. That millennials blame for everything.
Are you sure they're not the Xenials?
The Zennials aren't really doing anything except just fitting in their place in life and still relating to the millennial. Now, millennials are doing the tiny house thing, and a lot of them are hopping into RVs and just living around the country. And they work online because you can do that now. You don't need a 9-to-5 job in a corporate office. You can
freelance. Yeah,
whatever you're doing, we can just hang out and shop local, eat locally sourced food. It sounds nice, except for the part where you don't have internet for 2 weeks. I don't think you're alone in feeling that way. I think a lot of people want to get away from. It's not even just debt. It's this constant pressure all the time about you not doing something right. Whatever it is, you don't have the right car. You're not wearing the right clothes. You don't see the right movies. It's never a positive thing. Whenever all the advertisements say your life isn't good enough without this product.
Yeah. The barrage of.
And I think that is what beats me down, is feeling like people are constantly telling me, you are not doing a good enough job with what you have.
Yeah, materialism.
Well, I have a lot of shit.
Ooh, I got. Damn.
Yeah, I just packed up. I've got a bag full of retro consoles. It's a photography bag, and I'm just these are the things that I've deemed too precious to throw away over my lifespan. But everything else I could give up, you must stay. But these are just things.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could ever give them up. But these are the things that at some point in my life I said, I need that. And whenever I didn't have that, I felt like less of a person. Mm-hmm. And how many of us are doing that over really, really hard things like boats or...
Oh, dude, boats are fucking money pits.
A bigger house or, kids.
So many people live beyond their means. I know you've said it a lot of times, but as you get pay increases and you move up in the world,
you just spend more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You increase your spending equal to
proportionally.
Yeah. You make yourself poor again. You buy a new boat.
You fall into, and it's one of those things where you make about as much money as your 5 closest friends, is what economists are always quoting. I don't know how true that is. I see some truth in it just because those are the people you tend to associate with more closely, more often. But at the same time, these are people in your same pay grade, and you see them owning the same shit. So, of course, you want to have a Mercedes.
Yeah.
Man, I just made $120,000 this year. Why don't
Mercedes.
I have a BMW? Why aren't my kids dressing in Prada?
Yeah.
Just stuff like that, man.
It's crazy. I think the phone industry is fucking whack, too, because it's inherent that leasing your phone is now the standard, right? And, I mean, debt is necessary to some extent. Although I think a lot of that is certain industries trying to get you to buy things oh yeah, that's fine. But the fact that everybody is either upgrading every year or every 2 years to get the latest device, and they're willing to, you know, just factor that into their monthly bill, and that's the standard. And like the companies have made it so easy for you to get this device, even poor people, right, that probably shouldn't have that device. They're like, I know it's fine, we'll finance it for you. It's not gonna cost you anything extra really, but here's just the monthly cost, you know, here's the price point, it's fine. What the fuck is that? I paid for this phone outright, and I'm not like bragging or anything, but I think that you should be able to have enough money to pay for the thing that you want and not have to finance it, you know?
I know and I don't know. And this is one of the weird things that I've come to the realization of. Is people who don't have money are constantly paying a tax on not having money.
Yeah, the poor person tax.
And people who do have money use finances, like use credit, use usually pretty wisely in order to leverage the money they do have and sit on top of whatever, you know, whatever kind of hump that they've gotten over.
Yeah.
There's an economy study that said something like $75,000 a year as a single person was the happiness goal. If you made more than $75,000 a year, you were in a place where you were no longer stressed by basic financial needs, such as the cost of rent, the cost of your car, and the cost of food. And that's great. That's fun, wonderful. But also, it doesn't really take into account that people with $75,000 a year probably aren't paying anywhere near as much in credit card debt, APRs specifically, as you were underneath that goal. Because I look at people who finance things with credit cards, and they can pay for all the things. They can afford to pay for all the things. And if they could just stop buying stuff for 6 months to pay off their stuff, they could get ahead of it, and then they would have 10% more money because they weren't paying the credit card fee.
Absolutely. I was on Reddit the other day, and there was somebody in the comments talking about how they worked for the IRS, and they were talking about how everybody that has money is using every possible loophole in taxes. Like, all the rich people are absolutely taking advantage of the system and working it to its full extent.
Yep.
I mean, they usually get they pay what they owe eventually, but everybody is taking advantage, and poor people don't have that luxury, right?
Yep.
They don't have accountants. They don't have time to figure that shit out. I don't know. There's a lot of shitty things that our free economy creates.
And we're trending very closely to the politics line again, but at the same time, it's also, I think, a really important thing that people don't ever take into account when we talk about people being poor and people not having things or people not deserving things. It's always like, okay, but you know, how much are they supposed to be responsible for? Because as a poor person, like when I was making $15,000 a year, I was paying 20% of my income in tax.
Yeah.
When I'm, you know, here I am now, we won't disclose how much I'm making per year, but I'm paying closer to 28% of my income in tax.
What do you have to hide?
It's a lot. We don't want to talk. It's embarrassing. But at the same time, you know, when I listen to I've got a friend who makes $400,000 a year. Ooh. And he pays about 7% in tax.
That's fucking backwards, man.
Right. And because up front he's got all this tax liability, but then you just put it in investments. You have long-term yield investments. You just put the money away. You take the long-term investments that are coming back down from you, and you use that money, which is now untaxed because you are, it's fucked up. But he gets to keep all that, and then, you know, he hires a couple of people to do things for him that he wants to take care of, and that's deductible. And, you know, you eventually, if you hire people to do things for you, you reduce your amount of income. And then you reduce your income to the line where you're like, okay, well, I'm no longer in the rich tax bracket.
Yeah. It's to go back to your point about, you know, people perpetually buying things. I'm 100% a firm believer that everybody at every level is looking up and saying, you know, if I could get there, I would absolutely be happier, and, you know, I'd be stress free, and I wouldn't have to worry. And everybody at every level is looking up, and there's so many people that could be in a better place in their lives if they would stop and look down and see that, you know, they could be much worse off. And
you make me feel really wise right now.
I'm fine with...
I'm like, oh man, if I could just stop working, I'd be really happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really looking at, but I feel like a majority of people do.
Yeah, they're just fucking chasing after the next thing, and they don't give themselves a chance to be satisfied because they're constantly hungering for more. And that's a human trait, right? Like, that's ingrained in us as humans, is to, where's our next meal coming from? Let me hoard as much food as I can so that I can survive, to increase my family line, perpetuate the species, so to speak. But
I'm going to take a line from your last podcast.
ooh,
Yeah, I'm quoting you.
damn.
It's one of those things where you talk about people having a passion, people having their own story, and people have what they're interested in.
Yeah.
And this is actually very close to what I'm interested in. And it's not, I don't want people to say, you're not capable of more, or you should be happy with what you have. You should be happy with what you have. That's kind of the biggest basic. We're all animals. I'm going to start with that. We're all animals, and we don't have anything figured out. And anybody who tells you what you're supposed to be doing with your life is just selling you something.
Absolutely.
Period. Anybody who says you're depressed, so you should be happier, or you should take these pills. I don't know. Like, maybe you have to take the pills, or maybe you need to start running, or whatever the solution is for you. It's not the same solution for everybody else.
Right.
But you should find something that you love. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the thing you do full time, because I know that when I love something, like when I used to love IT, I worked doing computer shit. I was like, I'm so happy. And then I got more responsibility, and I'm like, I'm making more money, but I'm less happy. And now I don't even fucking want to look at a computer anymore.
Yeah.
I've got like my stream set up at home. I have a 2-computer stream, and then I also have all of these consoles that I hook up to I just play games on everything.
Yeah. Fucking nerd.
I'm a fucking nerd. And you know what? Every time something goes wrong with it, I'm just like, I don't fucking want to deal with it right now.
Yeah.
I will hire someone else to deal with it, because IT
So
is not
funny.
something I want to do with my time.
Yeah.
But when you take something and you're passionate about, and you try to turn it into a profit center, it's a pain point.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is find something you're passionate about and make concessions in your life with what you're not happy with.
Mm.
I stream weird hours because I love streaming, and I love connecting with people, and I love telling people, you need to do what you love to do, because you only have a short period of time here. And if you love singing and you suck at singing, just do it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter. I don't know why anybody ever lets anybody talk anybody out of anything.
Yeah.
You should never let somebody talk you out of anything, unless you're being harmful. Let me put a caveat on that. Don't touch kids. Don't hurt other people.
Don't hurt yourself.
Like, don't hurt yourself.
I guess you can if you want.
Yeah, I won't. I would rather you don't hurt yourself.
Yeah.
But if that's what you have to do, I'm not going to tell you not to.
You're not hurting others, so I guess that's fine.
Right. Be in the pursuit of happiness for yourself, and that's what I like to do. That's, if you want to find a passion in me, I don't want to hear about it. I want to find a way for you to do it. And I have given up sleep. That's my concession, because I never really liked sleep anyway.
Oh man, I'm such a sleep slut.
I
I'm a sleep slut.
sleep between 4.5 and 5 hours a day,
Yeah.
and it's in two shifts. Like, I do a 2-hour nap after work, and I actually kind of like switch things up here for me, and then I stream for 4 hours, 5 hours, and then I take another 2 or 3 hour nap, and that's it. So.
Nice. Sleep's such a weird thing. I've always had pretty good luck at the 5.5 hour mark for a night of sleep. I usually wake up feeling pretty refreshed.
It's solid, You really need 8, to maintain your sanity.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's terrible because not everybody's built the same way. But for some reason, 8 is like the sweet spot.
Yeah. I sleep is like my second or third favorite thing in the whole world, and I don't know why I don't get more of it. I deprive myself. I'll find myself at the end of the day hungering for more from that day. I haven't done enough, and I don't do anything with it. I'm just like everybody else. I'll go fucking scroll through some social media or watch some fucking YouTube videos.
YouTube.
I'm not doing anything with it, so I should just go to fuck to sleep. But when it comes to the end of the day, and it's not like some grandiose I need to, what if tomorrow doesn't come? I need to squeeze every ounce out of the day. It's not that grandiose. It's just an inner urge for me to do something else other than go to sleep, which is fucking stupid most of the time.
Yeah, and it's weird because I have the same problem. I had the same problem when I was living a normal life. I'm gonna say living a normal life, a more typical life. I was staying up and watching YouTube or HBO or whatever the hell it was. I was just not doing anything with it, and it wasn't because I didn't want to sleep. It was just my brain's like, why are you sleeping right now? There's this huge world to experience, and you could be taking in input and forming opinions and researching things. And I'm like, okay, let's do that. Sit down in front of my computer. Oh, Wikipedia. We'll start there.
I fucking love Wikipedia. You donate to Wikipedia?
I do every time. It's like PBS.
Yeah.
These articles are here through hard work and donorship from viewers.
If everybody
like you.
donated $5 right now, this fundraising drive would be over.
They keep highlighting more stuff. In their
I give them $50 a year. I think like that's my part.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I only do like $5, and I could probably afford to do more. I tried to do it this time. It wouldn't take my card. I was pissed. Fuck, I need to go back and do it before it's too late, dude.
Help me help you.
Wikipedia.
No, that's great. And you know what? It doesn't matter how much you do, as long as you do.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is people always they're diminutive towards their efforts, and they say I can't do anything, or what's my $5 gonna help?
Yeah.
But it's just do it. Just do it. Like Shia LaBeouf, just do it.
Yesterday you said tomorrow.
Just don't let your dreams be dreams.
Yeah, man, just go for it.
Yeah.
Life is way too short.
Be more generous. Be a part of someone else's life. Be present. Have a conversation with somebody.
Be the president.
Don't be the president. Have a conversation with somebody and don't just wait for your chance to say something. Just listen to what they have to say for a little bit.
People need to listen a lot more. Everybody's just waiting to fucking respond.
Yeah.
Don't talk. I'm talking. You listen. No, I'm just kidding. You have talked about it. Say some shit.
Well, so okay, so
I totally took over your podcast.
No, that's
what I
all right,
always
man.
do.
This is
Ron
what
hijacked it. Dude, you're way fucking more interesting than we are anyway.
That's not true. I mean, I really liked your podcast. I listened to the first 2 episodes.
Man,
let me
say
plug
that
the
'cause
podcast. Let me plug the podcast in the middle of the podcast. It's a meta podcast.
If you guys haven't checked out Pondering Aimlessly with Brandon and Kyle, you should, because it's fucking good.
And I can only say so much. I like the attitudes you guys had because it's not necessarily, you guys challenge each other and you challenge your guest, which I appreciate. It's never just like, we're going to sit here and we're going to be nice to each other. Like, you're going to ask questions, and you have intelligent responses, and you're usually pretty well read on the things. Like, you started talking about physics stuff. I don't remember all of it. Because
String theory?
String
Yeah,
theory.
we were talking string theory.
Dude, I went down so many fucking YouTube holes when I was younger. Oh my god.
And it was cool because it was just like, man, it's really nice to have a podcast for people. And you started talking about universe theories. It was the expanding universe theories,
Yeah.
and how the Big Bang happened, and the membrane things, and all that. And you're like, and at some point you just said, but I don't know enough about that to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, man, that was so great because usually people are just like making shit up and talking about.
Trying to sound important, dude.
Yeah.
I don't fucking know.
Yeah, it was a nice change of pace because it was honest. It was so honest. You guys aren't selling
Thanks,
anything
man.
yet, so
God
it still feels so honest.
Woo!
Thanks, man. That means a lot.
We're just trying to sell you our friendship.
We're honestly just trying to hang out and hang out with other people and record that for ourselves. If other people like it, cool.
Yeah.
If not, it's alright because I like it. I'll go back and listen to it.
It's a really good excuse to just get together with people that are interesting, that are your friends, and have nice long form conversation. I think that's part of the problem too. There's so many fucking problems, but people can't put down their phones. I keep looking at mine because I need to be distracted.
Hot chicks.
Yeah, no, just talking to one another. Nobody does that enough.
We do, but we don't. It's weird. I have such a great I have a work wife. I think people who work with in mixed company eventually have that relationship with there's one other opposite sex. Maybe that's, I'm assuming things. I'm as a person heterosexual, so I think I looked for that in my real life. I'm very satisfied, but when you get to the work part, you have to kind of find a balance for yourself.
Yeah. And
guys are testosterone and bullshit, and if you work in an environment that's full of politics, you really get sick of it. So it's nice to take a break. So I have a work wife, and we talk a lot. It's really nice to have a conversation with her, and I like to listen about her life. And she's got kids, so I love listening to her about kids. So I don't have to think about having kids ever.
Yeah.
I don't want kids, but just.
There's too many of them already.
She has 4.
Yikes.
Oh god.
She has enough for us.
You gotta.
Good.
She's compensating.
This
for
stuff
it.
of nightmares, man.
Yeah.
There's too many fucking people on this planet.
That's and it's not a bad thing. Although, politics.
Yeah.
It's just having that conversation. We talk a lot, but that conversation doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Because when we walk away from work, that's where that stops. We don't have a relationship outside of work, and I make that on purpose. I don't like to introduce my work life to my personal life because it's never gone well for me in the past.
It's nice to have that separation.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that, so a while ago, there was a very kind, very sad girl who is one of my good friends, and she said something to me that really clicked and kind of made me a little bit more depressed as a person. But she said that humans don't do anything without any sort of like selfishness in mind. Like there's no such thing as a selfish act, and I still can't think of anything that's 100% selfish. Selfless. Sorry. No such thing as a selfless act. Because if you do anything for anyone else, you get something in return. You get that little I feel good about it. Somebody noticed me doing that. Now they like me a little bit more.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do that's completely selfless? Selfless? Why can't I talk right now?
I'm 100% a firm believer that there's not a selfless act that exists because of, how, regardless of how small or grand the feedback that you get from that is, whatever your motive is in that, if you claim to be, it's truly selfless, like if you're not getting any monetary gain or any relationship building with that person, you could take an example of a martyr, somebody who sacrifices themselves to save somebody else's life, right? I had a really interesting conversation with my friend, actually, based on the first podcast. I don't know what he was referencing or how we got to this point, but he was like challenging me, and he showed me a picture of some guy who's sacrificed himself during a school shooting, and he's like, you don't think that, this guy in a split-second gut reaction, he was calculating, the benefit that he would receive or the posthumous regard that people would have for him, and I'm like, I can't speak for him. I don't know who that is for one, so I can't say what his motives were. But for me personally, I think about being in a situation like that, and I'd like to do the right thing. I can't say for certain how I'd react, but knowing that how society would regard me in the afterlife, that's part of it that weighs onto it. Another part is, that you want other people to continue on. You think that they might do better for the world than you might. Whatever your motive is in that, before that instance, the premeditation of it, I think that most people that react instantaneously have thought about it, and there's a lot of people who don't act right. There's plenty of bystanders. You get the bystander effect where oftentimes there's things that happen and nobody reacts because everybody else thinks
somebody else will do it.
Yeah, right? But the people that do react in that moment, I think, have 100% premeditated it, and they decided, I'm going to be that person, which I think is super dope, and it doesn't take anything away from them. Like, you shouldn't think anything less of them, and that shouldn't diminish their contribution in that situation. But there are selfish aspects to it 100%. And
they get you remembered as the hero.
And it's funny because I'm going to disagree with you, and I'm going to disagree with your friend.
Oh, yeah.
I think initially, in order to become selfless, you have to have a selfish aspect of it. Mm-hmm. There needs to be a reward system. Mm-hmm. There needs to be some sort of appreciation or whatever it is. I think those things build a person who becomes selfless. I think somebody who gets taught, you should do this because you're going to get something from it, will always look for that kind of gratification.
Sure.
Versus someone who's taught, you should do this because someone will like it. And then they learn the gratification. But gratification becomes like, it's just a response that people have, and there's a muscle memory to it. And I think there are little selfless acts that we commit on a daily basis, or maybe even beyond a daily basis, where holding a door open for someone. You're not holding a door open for someone because you are expecting them to say, "Oh, thank you, you're such a great guy." You were holding a door open for someone because you're being considerate.
Yeah.
And I think being considerate is selfless. Just having a thought for someone, saying, "I will do this," not knowing what the consequences are going to be. You don't have to be thanked. I do it 3-4 times a day.
Sure.
And I've never received a thank you from anybody because it's, the students. But this was a muscle memory, something that I was taught when I was young. My father said, you should hold the door open. Mm-hmm. When people are close enough to you, and there's a whole interaction there. And he taught me to do that. And now it's just nothing. Like, oh, I should be considerate. There's somebody 4 steps behind me. I can hear them. I should open the door and then hold it open for them. Because who knows? Maybe they're carrying something, whatever. Or maybe it's something simpler than that. You've served dinner. I don't know if you cook.
No. Pizza, cereal.
Okay, you served dinner. You made dinner, whatever. And you've served dinner, and you give it to your girlfriend, and then you're just like, shit. I'm going to glass of water, or soda, or Faygo, or whatever you have.
Some fucking Faygo, baby!
Or wine. Whatever it is, you just automatically pour it and give it to her. You weren't expecting any sort of gratification. It's part of your, daily routine, whatever it is. But it's still a selfless act. It's an act of consideration that you do without record. Like, it's not even that you have a thought about it. And this is the problem: is anytime you would try to apply some sort of logic or some sort of thinking towards any sort of act, you define it. It becomes a monetary value in some way. Mm-hmm. But something that you do automatically is a selfless act. And in that same aspect where you talk about people in the situation of a school shooting, which is, always something we don't want to minimize or talk down on, I think a person who acts to save other people's lives doesn't sit there and think about, what am I going to get out of it? Or has never thought about what kind of glory or anything that comes around it. It's just this person, whether through training, whether through experience, or whether through just the way they were born, made that decision a long time ago. And that's just something that they have for muscle memory.
Sure.
So,
what if you change the question to say, can you do anything for someone else without it benefiting you in some way? Because if you hold the door open for someone, it benefits you because they look at you in a better light than they did before you held the door open for them. Most of the time.
Even if you don't receive, like if there's no verbal communication, right? That like for a point system or like elevation raises you.
The same thing could apply to giving your girlfriend like a glass of water. She'd be like, wow, my boyfriend's sweet. He gave me water. I'm more likely to have intercourse with him tonight.
I would say that there's no act that comes without some sort of consequence. At the end of the day, what you're talking about is an exchange period, and everything as humans and animals, everything is an exchange. Whatever you do, whether good or bad, comes with some sort of caveat, whether immediate or long term. Mm-hmm. Not grabbing your girlfriend a glass of water, maybe not a big deal right now, and she'll get up and get a glass of water, but maybe 6 months down the line, she'll go, you never fucking think about me.
Yeah.
So
the point that I got to with my friend was that if there exists no truly selfless act, then aren't all acts then a little bit selfless, right? You can't have, if they all are a little bit selfish, then everything is in turn also selfless.
Yeah.
The paradox that creates, that it kind of flatlines and levels everything back down. So
when I hold the door open for somebody, I don't ever think that person thinks better of me. I think that I'm just like the fucking handicap button on the door. I just happen to like do it a little bit earlier than them, and I opened the door and they were just like, oh, this is a function of nature. Some people have gotten pissed off with me about it. Like, I don't need you to open a door for me.
Yeah, no shit.
And I know you're a human being, and there are all these options in how you're going to exit this building. But I was attempting to do something considerate.
Cool your jets.
Yeah, I don't really think about it either, but I feel like you do benefit. Is the argument? I mean,
you benefit from brushing your teeth. You benefit from taking a shower every once in a while.
What? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Was that Newton's law of force?
Energy.
That's
cause and effect.
That's the first law of. Is it force?
Motion? I don't know.
It might be motion.
Fucking science terms.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a
every action comes with equal.
Everything's an exchange. So.
It's crazy to think about how like you watch any show where they go back to the future and they're like, you step on a leaf, you could.
You're talking about the trilogy featuring Senior Shakes.
Oh my god.
A national hero.
I think he's talking about any time travel movie / TV show / whatever.
Anyway,
that deals with the butterfly effect.
It's just crazy to think about how every single thing you do is going to like infinitely expand the universe, whether like you see it or not.
There's so many things going on simultaneously that it's a fucking cacophony.
Yeah. And all you have to do is be nice. All you have to do is be nice or be considerate of other people. And could you imagine it? If everyone was considerate of everyone else.
Oh my god.
Right? Or you know what? If like 30% of us were considerate to everyone else.
Right. Or like, I think there's a lot of problems, not to get political, but in exchanges between countries or sales, like people who are selling things, want to profit the most, and people who are buying things want to save the most. And if those people could just come together to like make a deal that was beneficial for both people and like gets each party, the maximum amount of money back without negatively impacting the other party.
Which is still the same place that they were going to end up in the first place, except instead of being adversarial, it's cooperative.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my god, that's insane.
Holy shit. We just solved fucking world hunger.
Yep.
It's crazy, man.
I am gonna get political. That's how I feel about healthcare. Because I know that this is one of those things people always get upset about. But the truth is, there's no reason to be anti-health. And universal healthcare makes so much sense on every level because it's the number one financial stress in the United States. Healthcare costs.
Is it even before education?
Yeah. We spend more in healthcare costs than we do in anything else. And on top of that, we have more healthcare debt than anything else.
Crazy.
Because of how much it costs to get cancer in this country.
Yeah, why is it so expensive to die?
I didn't choose this shit.
It's more expensive to die than it is to live sometimes. That's fucking crazy.
But we turn around and we say, you know what? That person didn't work for it. But, as soon as you get cancer, that person who is like, I don't want to pay for that person to go to the doctor. They need help, and they're on GoFundMe asking for the same shit.
Yeah, dude, I was gonna bring up GoFundMe earlier in relation to Patreon and how crazy that shit gets.
Fuck GoFundMe.
Fuck GoFundMe.
Oh my god. Whenever we turned around, it's such a wonderful thing to be able to help people.
Right.
It is such a wonderful thing. And when people are in really bad shape or when something incredible happens and what a wonderful thing to be able to pay them back in some way or to help them out. You have all these people who are like, I can't afford to make my bills this month and blah blah blah, and you see the pictures of them and you're just like, I don't know if I should really be judging your life choices. I'm going to try to be a more positive human being, but there's no way that you didn't spend some of that on tattoos.
Or little Debbie snacks.
Or little Debbie snacks, or whatever that situation is. It totally.
Or Faygo.
But then
Woo-woo.
Faygo is the best.
Woo-woo.
This stream is sponsored by Faygo, the choice of juggalos everywhere.
Yeah, can you go ahead and do our read really quick? Our sponsor read?
Yeah. And Red Bull. Do not mix Red Bull and Faygo. Results may vary.
Yes.
But GoFundMe, and it brings up a really interesting one. The guy who gave the woman, the homeless guy who gave the woman $20 so she could get home because she was out of gas.
Yeah, and then they
made $400,000 on their on the GoFundMe. They were like, we want to get this guy. They were like, we want to get him an apartment, and a truck, so he can get a job, and they ended up with $400,000. So.
And then they were managing it for him because they didn't think he was
keep
stable.
It?
Yeah.
Yeah, they gave him $50,000.
Oh, that shit gets me fucking heated.
And by $50,000, I mean they bought him a couple of trucks that were both broken, and they both sold the trucks afterwards. And they bought him an RV, which they also sold and kept. It's in their name on their property. But they also bought a BMW. Dude, they went on vacation. There was some gambling.
Those people. This homeless guy gave you the last amount of money that he had in his pocket, and then you took that situation to benefit yourself, dude.
How are they not in prison?
My
man?
God.
Oh, they're headed that way. Yeah,
good.
But so I mean, on the one hand, this guy's definitely seen some sort of benefit to it. He's gotten some drugs. He said he did some drugs, thousands of dollars in drugs. He gave a bunch of money to his family and friends.
Yeah, what a nice guy.
Yeah, no, totally. That was very generous of him. And this is a guy, in the same way that if you gave me $1 million, I would immediately go throw it away and give it to people and whatever. This was just such an insane amount of money for this guy who's probably seen $400 this year to finally have $50,000 or I think he ended up with $7,000 in cash or whatever. But these people took it from him. This was his generosity, and they took it in the name of his generosity. They said we were gonna buy him a house, and they didn't even fucking buy him a house.
Fucking pieces of shit. Isn't it crazy how homeless people are better off to be in jail than they are in the streets?
Yeah, wow.
3 square meals a day and housing and shelter. That's fucking nuts, dude. What stops all the homeless people in the country from just committing crimes and going to jail? And that's part of the overpopulation problem in prisons, I'm sure.
I've met a lot of homeless people, and then I don't want to toot my own horn because I usually try to do things without telling people. But I've had the chance to spend a lot of time with homeless people, not because I've hang out with them, but because I try to go out and have meals with them, and in the winter I like to go out and buy a bunch of coffee and distribute that shit.
You're such a better person.
No, I'm not. I just have more money. I don't really have more money, but every once in a while I have an extra $50. I'm like, oh, this is fine. But I'll try to do something like that, and people will tell me what they're in for or what they're dealing with or whatever. Some people. They can't communicate. Mm-hmm. They can't talk. They can't you know,
or they have psychosis.
They have psychosis, schizophrenia, whatever the problems that they're dealing with. Sometimes they're just illiterate. Whatever it is that they have a communication barrier, they don't know any better. They don't know they should commit a crime and go get arrested. They don't know that there's a system there that they could be abusing.
Yeah.
And then the other people, they're like, "Man, fucking, I like living on the streets."
Have you ever seen Atlanta with Donald Glover?
No, I would like to.
There's like 3 seasons out. Fucking, it's on
FX.
Yeah. Fantastic fucking show. I'm only like 3 episodes in. I'm way behind. I think it's like the 2nd or 3rd episode. Donald Glover goes to jail for some shit, and he gets out. But there's this scene with a homeless guy that's clearly got schizophrenia or psychosis. Like, he's fucking nuts. And they're like, everybody's in the prison like, oh yeah, the jail. They're like, oh yeah, Frank's back. Cool, fucking Frank. And all the officers are like, oh, Frank, you fucking crazy. What are you doing this time? And he goes in and he gets some fucking toilet water in a cup, right?
Yeah.
And drinks it, and everybody's like, "Oh no, he's drinking it crazy like World Star." I think somebody actually says World Star in the show. Yeah, and then he's walking around drinking it, and the cop's like, "Oh, Frank, you're fucking crazy, man!" And he spits water at the cop for whatever reason, because he's fucking crazy. The cops lose their shit and start beating the fuck out of him with a baton. And Donald Glover's like, "What the fuck, man? Prison system's so fucked up." He's like, "That guy clearly needs some help," and that's, I'm sure, the case for a lot of people, but. That's just the way the system works. Like, oh, this guy committed a crime. He's here. He has to go to jail.
Yep.
I think we might have talked about it before, but we need to transition to a system of like refinement and rehabilitation rather than punishment.
It's different. It's difficult because we have a self-perpetuating system of violence based on a system where, like, our prison system is mostly for profit.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna get into politics.
Privatized, man. What the fuck
is
that?
We need a better mental health structure. Period. Start there. Mental health, number 1. Fuck everything else. Let's fucking like identify. I know it's one of those weird lines where can you identify somebody as a problem if they're just not normal? But yes you can. They're like there's not normal, and then there's like legitimately dangerous, and then refinement and rehabilitation sounds wonderful, and it makes a wonderful case as long as we're willing to restructure other things. Like, why would you ever worry about your status in the country the minute you become a felon? You have no way to change anything. You're not allowed to vote.
Yeah.
You know, there's all these things that get taken away from you because of whatever it was that you were involved in your life at that time. Mm-hmm. We don't give people the opportunity to change because the minute that we label them a felon and take all those things away, not only are they undesirable, they're more likely to commit those felonies again, first of all, because A, that's not what they know, and B, nobody wants to give this guy a job. Mm-hmm. So, you know, rehabilitation starts on a different side of things. I think we need to give people the opportunity to lift themselves before we can have a program to push people off. Otherwise, we're just going to say, hey, we did all this work to rehabilitate these people. Guess what? They're back. Yeah. Because we haven't fixed anything.
Yep.
So
that's a tough problem.
Like, the fine line between, like, panhandlers, right? Yep. I struggle with giving them money because... You see people and you hear stories of people like that's their fucking job and they just go collect money.
Yeah.
I always feel obligated when they bring a kid.
I'm pretty sure you don't have, and those are the worst people. I'm pretty sure you don't have any sort of religious beliefs. But on the one hand, because I have friends who are very religious.
I'm and fucking Missouri
straight out of Iowa.
Boy.
Oh boy. No. I think I remember in the previous podcast you were pretty heavy into the atheism thing, which is fine. Yeah. I am too.
Or yeah.
You were very like there was a lot of religion bashing.
Yeah.
Maybe
yeah.
I'll just say
all
that.
Those religions.
But I have friends who are very Christian. They refuse to give homeless people any money because they are like they're probably going to use it on drugs or alcohol or whatever. Dude. And to me, I say that's not my problem. If you're giving somebody, and it's the same thing about selfless giving. If you're giving somebody something, you're giving it to them out of your heart.
Regardless.
You have done the good thing, and they have to make the right decisions from there.
Yeah.
It's not up to me. It's not. I don't care what their life is or what's going on, or, you know, are they? Because there was one dude in Burnsville that he was selling cold water out of a what is it?
Like cooler?
Cooler. Thank you. I couldn't come up with the word.
It's a weird one.
Yeah. No. I was trying to come up with the actual like brand, but it wasn't even a brand name. It was just like this cheap Super America styrofoam cooler. And this guy, you know, he had the sign. He's like, "Please, I don't have a job. Or do you want some cold water?"
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, I was like, fuck it, yeah, I want a bottle of cold water. I pull up in my car, and I give him $20 for a bottle of cold water. He was asking for 5.
Damn.
Which is still a lot for a cold water, but it wasn't like a small bottle of cold. It was one of those like cheapy. It was like a Dasani. But he said he'd take anything, and I was like, yeah, here, $20, thanks. And because he didn't have a job, but he had a job.
Yeah.
It was fucking 110 degrees outside, or I don't know.
Dude, I love people that are their ingenuity. People that are.
He was enterprising.
Yeah.
That guy's hustling.
Fucking hire me to let me wash your car. Like, what the fuck can I do for you to get me some money? Some food.
They do the same shit that you're talking about in Vegas. Last time I went there.
Oh my god.
Literally. So there's a gas station like 2 blocks from the strip.
Yeah.
They'll walk to that gas station, buy a pack that's already cold because it's in the freezer.
Yeah.
Put it in their cooler of ice, and then bring it over, sell them all for $1 a piece, and just repeat the whole day. And they make a killing. Dude. It's hot as fucking Vegas.
Yeah, I love it. I love Vegas. It's fun. I went to. We're gonna reveal things here.
Ooh.
I went to Star Trek Las Vegas in August because I'm a huge Star Trek fan.
Nice.
I have a tattoo, and
show it.
Yeah,
show it to the camera. Let's flash it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
No, I have a tattoo.
Wait, now do we have to like fucking mark this as PG-13?
I didn't give you any nipple, so.
Alright. We'll probably
Doesn't count.
Doesn't count. Do it again with the nipple.
It was 110 degrees. When I left Vegas, it was 110 degrees, 10% humidity. And people in Vegas were like, oh, I can't do this humidity. And I was actually there with my friend. She was like, it's so hot. I'm so miserable. I don't know how people do this. And I was like, this is amazing. I love this weather.
I feel exactly the same.
Out in the sun, I was like, okay, this is a little oppressive, but I'd still deal with it. Like, I got a great tan in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But as soon as I got in the shade, I was like, this is fucking beautiful. Yeah. I come back to Minnesota. It was 8 o'clock at night. I think I landed at 8 o'clock at night. It was 85 degrees. 60% humidity, and I wanted to get back on the plane and go the fuck back to Vegas.
Dude,
100%.
I marched a mile in 109-degree weather in Vegas. I don't know what the humidity was.
Yeah.
I went to Project Pie, which is like Subway for pizza. I don't even know why I got it in my head that was a good idea, or I was like, I think I was just like, I want some fucking pizza. Oh yeah, this place looks great. Shit was fire. Don't get me wrong. Fantastic pizza, but by the time I walked another mile back and got into my hotel room, I think I had fucking heat exhaustion. I was so sweaty and hot. Holy fuck! Dude, I had to take a cold shower. I almost got fucking scrambled eggs up.
I wasn't sweating. I was wearing like a flannel.
Damn!
It was amazing. I love that, and some people are just built for that. I think I'm built for that.
I feel exactly the same way. Humidity is the worst.
Yep.
Dry heat is awesome.
Yep. When I was in basic training, I was in Georgia, and Fort Benning, Georgia, and it was fucked up. We started our basic training cycle. So I enlisted before September 11th, and then September 11th happened, and then I shipped out on September 18th, 2001. Yeah, and the only reason we shipped out on September 18th is because they were just getting the flight schedule back up. So we shipped out.
Oh man, I bet that was a fuck fest.
What was that like? What was the atmosphere in the military like pre and post 9/11?
I can't tell you about pre 9/11. I had friends who said that it was somewhat different, but I think we had a lot more open mind than we did. You would think that it would be full of more racism because that's kind of what it became, but at the time we just wanted to know why. We were so ignorant of all the things that happened in the Middle East and all of these awful things that the United States was responsible for.
Yeah.
Like Osama bin Laden was trained by the CIA to fight Russians. So what? Yeah, this is.
I don't know if I've ever heard that before.
That was well, Russia was involved in Afghanistan back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Sure.
And so that was one of those things. The CIA had developed a terrorism training program. It wasn't really a terrorism, but insurgent training program, and they were supposed to resist, and that was part of how they resisted the Russians all the way through. Nobody's defeated Afghanistan in an all-out war because they have a desert full of caves that they can hide in.
Yeah,
it's tough.
There's somebody on Reddit was going off the other day. I think there's probably documentaries or shit about it. How America is virtually uninvadable as well.
Yeah.
Based on our terrain.
Yeah.
Like the only way that you could do it is by airdropping people in. But
if Canada decided to do it, they wouldn't even be able to have the coverage to do the border.
Yeah.
If Mexico decided to do it, it's all desert, and that's not a big issue.
Yeah.
To
the
defend.
change in climate and elevation, like the lay of the land is super fucky, and
Even if they do get in, man.
And everyone is armed here.
Yeah, the militiamen, they were talking about that too. I was,
Oh my god.
Somebody can shoot you in every other
They would
house.
fucking, like, could you just imagine the entire South would be like, finally!
yeah, dude, fucking.
Let's get him,
Saddle up,
boys!
boys! You were getting fucking out! Yeah, Rudy Tooty Cowboy
Fucking
shooting!
heyday, dude.
Yeah.
Rudy Tooty Cowboy shooting in real life.
God damn it.
Woo!
No, but so well, I enlisted. One of the things that I hated, because I didn't enlist for patriotism or any of this shit. I was like, I had auditioned to go to college. I was going to go to Luther College in Iowa.
Nice.
With, yeah, they had this wonderful choir program. I was going to become a musician, and then I realized that what that meant was that I would have to drive a shitty Honda Accord to performances 4 nights a week and make $35,000 a year for the rest of my life. And that is not worth getting a master's degree in music for.
Yeah.
Nah.
Dude.
So I passed on that, and I didn't know what to do with my life. So I was avoiding trying to take responsibility for anything. So I said, you know, fuck it, I'll join the Army.
Yeah.
And when I figure out what I want to do, I'll have the Montgomery GI Bill and some money.
That's big of you.
Never walk out of the Army with money. Nobody does.
Nobody gets out.
No. If you retire, maybe, but that's it. I don't think it's big of me to admit. I think it's just everybody wants to create this hero image of all.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and that's, if you want to live that life, great. I don't. I hate it when people thank me for my service. It's like,
Thank you for your service.
I was being so fucking selfish. Like,
Fucking get me out of here.
when I joined, it's like the United States was in this wonderful time where we didn't have any conflicts, like major conflicts going, and we were just like, fuck it, the Army sounds fun. Shoot guns and hang out with people who you don't like, but you're gonna love for the rest of your life. And you know, I still have love for those people, but I don't talk to anybody I was in the Army with.
No,
it's just
haven't kept up.
No, not at all. And that's fine. I don't want to. If anybody of them showed up and was like, yo, I need to crash your couch, I'm like, yeah, fuck it, get in. That's what it is. But we joined. We got on the plane. The first plane that we got onto, because we had to take 2 planes, because we couldn't even get a straight flight to Georgia. We had to take a connecting flight.
Isn't that crazy how, like, oftentimes the military just, like, flies on commercial airlines into like, an allied country, and then the deployment happens from there?
Yep. Like, oh, we Air France to Paris, and now we're... Okay, C-130 from here. Cool, great. That just sucks. But no, we got on the plane, and there were, I think, 12 of us coming from Minnesota to I think it was Kentucky was a connecting flight. And the first thing that the fucking captain of the plane did, he was just like, I wanted to let everybody know that we've got 12 brand new members of the U.S. Army. Like, oh god.
Fuck up, Dad. You're so embarrassing.
And everybody's like, yeah, thank you. I'm just like, I don't want to talk about it. Thanks. We got to Kentucky. We had to, we ran all the way across the terminal. Like, it was like a full-out sprint to make the plane. We had 15 minutes to make the connecting flight. And we got there, we got on the plane. Nobody wanted any talk. It was fucking 10 o'clock at night. We landed in Georgia at 2 o'clock in the morning. We had to take a bus from Georgia, Atlanta International to Fort Benning. So it was 4 o'clock in the morning when we finally got to Fort Benning. And then the first thing that happens, we got smoked right off the bus. Get the fuck off the bus, Private! Get your... get it. And then they start giving you instructions. They tell you about the front-leaning rest position. You're going to spend a lot of goddamn time in that position, Private! Front-leaning rest position! Move! I'm like, what is that? What? It's a fucking push-up! Get down! Beat your face! We do fucking 100 push-ups before we even got into the reception battalion where you do the fucking paperwork. And by that time, I'd never done 100 push-ups in my life. So I'm sitting there like trying to fill out my forms. I can't even move my arm. And it's 4:30 in the morning. Yeah, it's worse. I don't even want to see those papers. Nobody ever find those papers, please. Because it's embarrassing. You're sitting there and they will smoke you for falling asleep. You're waiting to get boots, because the first thing that's going to happen is you get boots, so you get measured for boots, and you have to wait in line for that, and then you go get uniforms, you wait in line for that, and by the time you finally get to go to sleep, it is time to wake up. So the first day we just it was rough. But from then on, we had like 3 dudes who were all like, America! And a whole bunch of other guys were like, dude, I got kids to feed. And that was kind of the attitude in basic training. The only real difference that I noticed up front was that people were really interested in going to Islamic services. Because you had, on Sunday, they tell you to go to church. The Army's like, I don't care if you're an atheist or whatever, if you are smart, you will go find a church. So I went to a Catholic service because I was really curious as to what Catholics were doing.
Sure. Did they say that just for the benefit of you as a person and community's sake, or
If they notice that you're sitting around the training battalion for too long, they will find something for you to do.
okay,
So it's
Alright.
it's a good way to not get volunteered for something.
okay,
That's what they were saying between the lines, but
sure.
I don't know how about religion and all that. So I went to an Islamic service because I was curious, and like I was not the only person who had that idea. They packed the mosque just full of people. We're all sitting on the floor, and people were like, "Do you have any questions?" And there were all these questions like, "Hey, why does everybody fucking hate us?
Yeah.
Why did this happen? What is the deal with your religion? Is it actually violent?" And we had all these questions, and they answered all these questions, and really the attitude was because we hadn't declared a war yet.
Yeah.
We hadn't at that point we hadn't decided we're going to Afghanistan to do anything.
Yeah.
And the Marines were the first on the ground for that, so we didn't even get the full thing. But everybody had the attitude that like, oh, we are actually going to go to war, and that was probably the only difference. I have definitely spoken for the last 20 minutes straight.
No, that's cool.
Super interesting, man.
Did you ever do you regret it at all? Was it an adventure for you?
I think everybody should do it. I think there should be a program in the United States like that. It's one of those things that, on top of education, I feel like the cost of education is just too high. We shouldn't subsidize that shit. We should use military service to do that. So everybody should probably be required to go through maybe 2 years of civil service, and then education could be free or whatever. But the reason for that is because I think it instills a discipline and a connection to other people, not necessarily to country. And that's the thing that was never instilled on us is patriotism. We were never told we need to love the United States. We need to love the flag. Or maybe they are now. But it was always, you need to love your brothers. You need to take care of the people in your platoon. If you hate the guy, you need to still take care of him because he's going to take care of you.
Yeah.
And that was one of those things that, on top of discipline, on top of being told that you don't matter, but there is a goal, and that goal matters, and you can help with the goal.
Yeah.
That was such a great lesson to learn.
One of my favorite TED Talks are guys that just speaks and is a smart man brain, has a smart man brain.
Yeah.
His name's Simon Sinek. He it's like a 3 or 4 minute TED Talk clip on YouTube, and it's about why great leaders make you feel safe. He talks about the army a little bit and how normally people that are leading a battalion will eat last, like they make sure that everybody else eats first, and the sense of community, like why humans were able to thrive is because we all agreed to take turns to watch at night, like have shifts that we would have each other's back, and that sense of community is really what like propels us and allows us to further ourselves. So I think that's super cool. For those of you out there, you should go check out that TED Talk. Simon Sinek, Why Great Leaders Make You Feel Safe. I'm not trying to sell you anything, but it's really cool.
Yeah, no. People who take care of other people will always, there's always a benefit to it. There's always a benefit to it. But it's not necessarily the benefit you're looking for.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to it, if you're going to ask someone to give their life for something, or if you're going to be asked to ask someone to give their life for something, you have to demonstrate that you're willing to do the same.
Yeah.
Or they're not going to do it for you.
For sure.
Who's the greatest leader of all time?
Like at any level?
Sure. Like you can say Vince Lombardi, you can say Obama, you can say whoever you think, whatever your belief system is. Like if you think of leader, who's the first person to come to your head?
Fuck, man.
Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
What made him so great?
Genghis Khan is interesting. It's so full of ambition, but I think that the ambition was unification of the world.
Yeah.
I think what Genghis Khan was attempting to do was to create, granted he wanted to be on top of that world, but to create a world where everybody could find peace.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to see the way he treated other cultures, because there was a massive amount of respect for the people within the cultures, but not the cultures themselves.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't think there was a place for those kinds of divisions, but he felt that people could be respected and they could be treated with respect and they could be a very valuable part of his society.
Yeah.
And that if you were a member of the other person's government, you're probably going to die. But
Not his problem.
Not his
talk
problem.
about that.
People draw a lot of parallels between Genghis Khan and Thanos, like how Genghis Khan I don't know if this is fucking fact because I've never researched it, but that he decreased like greenhouse gases because of how many people that the Huns killed.
Maybe.
Yeah, everyone
so did the
killed
plague.
decreased it.
You talked about the plague before.
Genghis Khan have like 600 or so offspring?
More than that, I think.
rumored. I don't fucking. That guy's crazy.
Like his blood is still out there.
Yeah, like 10% of Asia in some way is related to him.
Fucking wild.
Lady killer.
Yeah, I don't think that he killed them afterwards.
No, I meant like.
Yeah, I don't. This is the greatest leader. I don't know if I can fucking top that with anything.
No, I don't think he's a great leader, but you talk about ambition.
Yeah.
Nobody can ever divide things into good or bad, because everything that I think was good about the Obama administration, somebody's going to turn around and say, well, I don't really agree with any of these things, and I think that man was a tyrant.
And I'm sure there's a bunch of people who are like, Trump is the greatest leader of all time.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes there are. It's not ironic.
Winston Churchill gets a pretty good rep for being the...
What's his best quality?
He was unwavering.
Yeah, he was kind of a fucking...
He knew what he needed to do to fix the war.
Yeah.
And he did it. he didn't care. He politicked his way. I'm fairly certain he had a bunch of people killed.
Probably.
But
straight
Putin. Under the table shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Winston Churchill's pretty good.
There's nobody can do anything great without some sort of sacrifice in some way.
Is it ever good? So, I mean, you're talking like the big evil, lesser evil.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it ever makes sense for the greater good for someone like Putin to assassinate somebody with political beliefs that he thinks might like seriously do a ton of damage to the country as a whole?
Beliefs are so dangerous.
Yeah.
The word belief is dangerous.
Yeah.
When you think of a man like Vladimir Putin, whom I have a lot of I can respect is even I can appreciate his view of the world.
Mm-hmm.
That he believes that he's really the best thing for Russia. And that's the thing, is nobody's ever the villain in the story. When you write your own story, you don't ever want to be the villain. You're not the bad guy. You're not the antagonist.
Yeah.
You're doing what you think needs to be done. And so when you look at somebody like him, no, I don't think anybody does anything out of belief is ever going to do a good thing.
Yeah.
It's because we're just at zero sum.
Yeah.
There are people who believe that there are too many humans here.
Right. And it's really interesting to see like the rise of power, and like when an existing government is overthrown and the new government, they have all these ambitions. 1984 is a fantastic example by George Orwell, or Hunger Games is a more recent example of how when a new government is instilled, like how they just slip back into all the
same things that the previous government was doing.
Yeah, it's really fucky.
And it's really interesting because that's one of those things that happens in human nature, is that we repeat what works. We take the path of least resistance. Mm-hmm. We don't do. And at the end of the day, yeah, you're gonna commit assassinations because that's what was being done before. Mm-hmm. Because you learned that lesson. Because, yeah, you're gonna be undermined by journalists. Guess what? You're not the good guy. Nobody. But there's no, like, on the grand scheme of things, how do you measure good or bad versus what improvement is? And I think everybody finds that scale for themselves. I am like, so I have no qualms with using violence when violence is necessary, mm-hmm. but I find myself to be a pacifist. I abhor the loss of life. Whenever someone has to die, it's a terrible thing. Mm-hmm. But choosing that somebody has to die is something we can't ever ignore, that it may be a necessity. The problem is you can never yourself classify your actions as good or bad. Mm-hmm. You can only determine whether or not you can sleep at night with what you've done.
For sure.
Because whatever you do, you can't judge. Nobody is ever going to think, I am the good guy. I am the bad guy. You always think you're the good guy.
Right.
You're right. Maybe. Do you always think you're the good guy? I feel like there's a lot of people who...
I think it depends on your level of self-awareness. I think I agree with Ron. The majority of people think that they're 100% always in the right, and they're very convicted.
Or even if you're doing something is wrong, you're doing it for the greater good.
You justify it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
there's very much similarity in the whole like selfish debate and how you justify things for yourself. Like there's a lot of parallels there, and you typically will always find a way to convince yourself that yes, this is the right thing, and I'm gonna be able to sleep at night based on what I've done.
Yeah, you're right. It's crazy what some people are able to like logically convince themselves is okay.
Oh, yeah.
But there's no logic. You make skips in logic where it stops making sense. Like, I don't know if that's fine because we're gonna get to the end result.
Yeah.
People who do those things look at the end result. They're not people who look at the journey.
Yeah.
And we're
Do the ends justify the means?
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. So what happens after you die? We got real far on that topic.
we totally did. I believe that when you die, I think I'm gonna repeat what I said before. Your consciousness leaves your body, and then your friends and family will hopefully do something respectful with it.
Yeah. Where do you think your consciousness goes?
I don't. I think like, and this is weird because I don't think that there's any like. There's a matter of energy. Energy and matter is the relationship that we have with everything in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
When we die, your energy, the spirit of your energy, dissipates. But I think that energy is the same as like what would fertilize a soil. If you were to be left in the ground without some sort of encasing, you'd be feeding the soil.
Yep.
You'd be part of that. And I think that particular energy, that which we consider the soul or whatever you want to think of it, is just a collection of that turns into something else, some sort of compost.
Yeah.
So there's nothing romantic about it. You do the best you can. I think people who worry about what we do in the afterlife or if there's an afterlife are too worried about the long game. Stop and like fucking take care of people. We're here already.
Yeah.
Why do you want to worry about the next game?
Yeah. Motherfucker. This
God.
one's not over yet.
Yeah.
Get your head back in.
There's actually been a few studies about people who've had like near-death experiences where they're flatlined or like their heart stops, whatever.
Can we talk really quick? Sorry. Can we talk about how dumb the fucking term near miss is? Boy, there's a near hit. You didn't near miss. You did miss. Anyway. Near death experience. Continue. I'm sorry.
That's right. I like the tangent.
Somebody else fucking brought that. I forget whose joke that is, but that pisses me off too. All right.
There's been a bunch of studies on it. They ask a bunch of people what it's like to be dead, and it's like 90% like, this is the greatest thing I've ever felt in my entire life. Just like free of responsibility, free of pain. Like it's almost, it's like the minority group might say that like, oh, I saw a snake or it was burning or I had a bad experience, but it's like overwhelmingly like, this is better than my friends or family have ever made me feel. And it might just be like
the lack of oxygen to your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have
Like
you
the
ever
DMT
had
going through
autoerotic asphyxiation?
No.
Do yourself a favor. No, I'm just kidding.
Let me ask you. What do you think happens to us with your consciousness? Whatever. However you want to look at that. What do you think? How does it end? Where does death take you?
I'm not really sure. I would consider myself agnostic.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think major religions like there's any. So like Christianity, for example, I'm not gonna like hate on Christianity because I think at its core there's some goodness about it. Like,
Most religions
take care of
have
each other.
goodness at their core.
But it's used to control mass groups of people, and it's all
Fucking love
like there's
the
always
Crusades.
corrupt people at the top doing really shitty things all the time, and they're just humans. But like, I feel like there's something bigger than us. Maybe it doesn't give a shit about us. Maybe it does. Maybe it's just watching to see what happens. Because like, there's so much that we don't know. We're so tiny in like the grand scheme of things. Reality is so. It's everything that we think it is. It's all of our experiences are our own. Like, it's pretty easy to convince someone that like they're dreaming and they're gonna wake up. Like, logically, you can make that make sense to them. And to me, it kind of makes sense that this might just be like the fucking step before actual life, you know? And I'm not trying to get like weird or anything.
No, it's fine. This is a weird conversation.
It is a weird conversation, but I feel
Are you about to get pulled out of the Matrix?
maybe I feel like the second you die might actually be like based on your actions. If you're good or bad, you might like if there's so reincarnation makes sense to me more so than like heaven or hell, basically. Because I feel like, but it also doesn't make sense because there's so many fucking people and the populations are growing. But if you're a shitty person and you come back as like an insect or something, like you get a quick shitty chance to like be a better person.
Smush.
Even though insects don't really do anything, but
Yes, just got stomped on.
I want to believe there's something bigger than us and that it gives a shit, and that's just like a human thing. It's hard to believe it most of the time, but it's nice to have hope. And I think it's worse for an atheist to go after a Christian for believing something and be like, you're wrong because of this, than it is for a Christian to try and save an atheist from their beliefs. Because, like, I don't know. I feel like it's a shittier thing to take away hope, even though they use that hope in shitty ways all the time.
I am so afraid, and this is going to be one of those weird discussions that I hope we don't get down a huge tangent of, but I'm so afraid of people who take Christianity and they don't look at it as a hope thing. Because there's so many people I know who are like, yeah, if I wasn't a Christian, I'd fucking rape somebody. Like, what?
Wow.
What is wrong with you?
Fuck.
There is, like, and the problem is that, like, on the whole, there's a benefit to having some sort of organized religion, but at the same time, like, I would rather teach people that they're responsible for their reactions and that other people have some sort of agency in these things.
Have you ever... Bo Burnham. Have you ever watched anything from Bo Burnham?
Oh yeah,
he's got a fantastic line in one of his specials where it's a song bit, and he's it's from the perspective of God, and the line is, "You shouldn't rape because you think that I don't want you to. You shouldn't rape because rape is a fucked up thing to do."
Yeah,
and it like
bingo. And I remember having that conversation. I'm like, wait, you mean if you didn't believe in a higher power, you would just like, yeah, why would it matter? Like, that's exactly why it matters.
Yeah.
This is, if you don't have, and to me that's one of those things where a lack of consideration of other people. And that's one of those things that religion has probably given us is the a system to deal with people who are so disconnected from the feelings and the existence of other people that we can maybe kind of like give them a reason not to be a complete piece of shit.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, God, man, is that the only thing? Because I had the realization when I was like 12. I said, I don't think there's a God. And then I went in search of God. I went to all of these churches and read all of these books. And I've read the Bible 6 or 7 times. I read the Quran a few times. I read the Torah once, and that one's probably the worst of them, honestly.
Yeah.
But I went through priest
fuck
after.
You. Fuck you, all you people who like the Torah.
Right. It's really the hardest one to read. Sorry, but it's boring. No. But I went through priest and rabbi and ministers, and I'm actually ordained minister, believe it or not.
Awesome.
And I've been through all of these conversations with people, and the answers were always like, we don't know. That's why we have faith. And I'm like, okay, well, you don't know, but why are we making the assertion that something exists without any sort of evidence beyond you misexplaining something?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I mean, that's really up to you, and that's, you know, your own search. And I'm like, okay, great. So I don't believe in God, and that's my own personal thing.
Sure.
And I don't think that there's anything wrong with believing in God. I think the only problem is when you force your beliefs on someone else, whether politically or moralistically or however you're doing it.
Yeah.
That becomes, I wouldn't even say unfair. It's one of those things that is just, it's evil.
Yeah.
We're all so different. We all love different things. You like a different type of music. You play different consoles. You play different games. We have so many differences at our core that should be celebrated. Mm-hmm. And in those cases, they want to hammer you down to exactly what they were.
You're right. It's malicious. It's taking pieces of you away.
Yeah.
I want to... What you said about trying to convince an atheist as a Christian and vice versa, and what you said, I go back and forth to both sides. Like, I also want to say that, it's better with the right heart and intentions in mind to try to convert somebody based on, like, good values, you know, depending on where your stance is in religion. But people who are on the other end of the spectrum, I think that's just as bad, right? That to try to force your beliefs or try to rip beliefs away from somebody based on where you're coming from, I think that it is just as bad to try to convert somebody to Christianity.
And based on where you're coming from, it's exactly the words that people need to understand. If you're in the South, you're a Baptist. If you're on the East Coast, you're some sort of Catholic / a non-denominational Christian. If you're on the West Coast, you're probably a godless atheist. But where you were born and to whom you were born has so much to do with what you believe and where those things came from, and the demonstrated, like, the rituals that you come through and the things that you take to heart. Those are all, you know, an important part of your identity as a person. I don't think it's ever a good idea to convert anyone from anything to anything. Leave people the fuck alone. seriously, and I hope that somebody out there hears this, that this doesn't get cut in an edit. Please leave this in. If someone else is enjoying their life, if someone else thinks that life is fine, do not fuck with their religious beliefs. If they're an atheist, if they're a Christian, whatever it is, let them be. Mm-hmm. Because changing that is the ultimate evil. You have no idea whether or not your God exists. You're just acting on faith. Yeah. Let the other person make the same mistake.
But we gotta get more members.
No,
man.
we don't. Stop.
Tithing.
Stop. If you don't have the money, join a different church. There are so many Christians out there who are splitting shit on the Bible. They're like, we're non-denominational because we can't stand the North Lutherans and the Southern Baptists, and we don't like the blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, who gives a fuck? You guys should all be friends, live together, worship together, and find something to celebrate instead of determining how you can't stand each other.
The whole tribalism.
Crazy. Speaking of denominations, Missouri Synod, I mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
I had a friend from the South one time that I worked with, and I told him that I'm not actually a Missouri Synod. I don't think I'm Zion Lutheran traditionally, but I said, I brought it up. I'm like, yeah, Missouri Synod Lutheran, but I didn't. I said it fast, and he's like, did you say Missouri Scented Lutheran? And I fucking lost my shit. Yeah.
Yep, he smells like Missouri.
Dude, so fucking funny.
What do you think Missouri smells like?
I've been there. It smells like swamp.
It's bad?
I've been there a couple times.
No, actually, Kansas City smells like wonderful fat food.
Oh, Kansas City's so fucking awesome. Shout out to our boy Eric Tran down in Missouri. How you doing, Big Papa? Come back and visit, please.
But I've been to the nastier side of Missouri, and it does smell like bayou. So your thoughts? I'd love to know where do you go?
Afterlife?
Yes.
Dude, I don't fucking know.
No, that's fine. Hypothesize.
Hammy, I was thinking about reincarnation and how fucking funny it would be if you came back to be an ant that you had killed as yourself with a magnifying glass. Like how ironic that is that you're alive for like 3 days and then you die from yourself with a magnifying glass. Like that shit would be so funny. We should do that as a skit. But that also reminds me of this fucking, I think it was a writing prompt Reddit story, where somebody took the premise of dying and then you go to meet like a god creature. It wasn't traditional god.
Oh no,
like
that was like a legit story. That was I don't remember who wrote it.
Do you know what I'm talking about? And then he was like,
you are all people.
Yeah, you reincarnate infinite number of times, so you will be Mother Teresa and you will be Hitler. Like you'll reach each end of the spectrum and everybody in between. And then once you've lived every life, then you get to ascend. Like that was fucking dope.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't necessarily believe in reincarnation. That story was super cool. Based on like where I had gone with my mentality, I for a long time hoped that there was just void and nothing, and that you would eventually just turn off. As I get older, though, I hope for more. You know. I don't know that I'm necessarily bought or sold on that.
I don't want to meet God. Whatever the situation is, I have seen so many awful things, and I've done other awful things.
Yeah.
And I don't mind being held accountable to those things, but I don't want to meet a God who could be apathetic toward the things that I've seen.
Yeah, or like that would. How fuck would it be like, you picked the wrong one. Sorry.
Yeah. Fire.
Like, fuck that.
You know what? I feel like, and that's the other thing you shouldn't fucking change anybody's religion for. Not because they could be wrong or you could be right or whatever. I'm pretty sure if your God is as benevolent as you're making it out to be when you try to sell him to me, he's going to be pretty forgiving. Like, you know what? I don't give a shit how you were, or if you read the Torah when you were 13 years old. Just like, were you a good person? Did you take care of other people?
Yeah.
Were you mindful of what you did? Did you take pleasure in death?
Right.
Did what was life to you? How important was it? Mm-hmm. And I think if you lived your best life, or at least a good life, where you did the best you could, not like objectively good.
I think that like the fire and brimstone, the fear of God. Traditional
fucking Catholics, man. Fucking Catholics.
If people in religion evolves, right? So it's not necessarily in that same place, but there's so many Christians who are like, yeah, I believe in God, but I don't fuck with that shit. Like, I'm not about to be fucking in a lake of fire for eternity. I don't want to think about that. They make so many decisions that they don't take that into consideration. And again, I don't want to be hypercritical or anything, but if that is a thing that exists. Your hell is a possibility. There has to be a hell for there to be heaven, right? You can't just.
That's what they say.
You can't live your fucking life as if that doesn't exist, and you're like, hey, I'll just ask for forgiveness. Get the fuck out of here. That shit's terrifying. Can you imagine being on fire forever?
That's you know what? That's fine. That would be worth it. I would find it worth it. If there was a God and I ended up in hell because I didn't believe in a God and that didn't influence my life, if those things were true, I would gladly serve the eternity in hell. Just to raise a middle finger to this guy.
Yeah, fuck him.
Just that I don't believe in that.
There was also an awesome story. I think it was a writing prompt about like how it was marketed all wrong, and like when you die, you just get to choose.
Yeah.
And like everybody chooses heaven, and then one person finally chooses hell, and the devil's like all super excited, and he's super nice, and he's like, "Oh, I got you a room. You know, nobody ever comes down here. It's fucking great to see you." And he's like, "Wait, what? They're saying that about me? What the heck?" And he like gets all pissed off about how religion is marketed hell. I don't know, fucking silly.
That
shit.
sounds awesome.
I know, but I love that too much.
I've spent a lot of time doing the religion thing. Jehovah's Witnesses, I think, are the closest to a literal interpretation of the Bible without being ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because even the Jehovah's Witnesses are like, no, that fucking Noah shit, that didn't happen. That's a metaphor.
Yeah.
Okay? This doesn't make any sense. Physically, this is impossible. The things that are being described here are unreasonable and definitely written by somebody who was using a metaphor to explain something that happened in a much bigger scale. But they also don't believe in hell. Like they say that, you know, they look at the book of Revelation like it's a very important part of the Bible, but at the same time, a lot of it was invented by the Catholics to scare the shit out of people.
Yeah.
The original versions of the Bible didn't include these passages about, you know, hellfire and burning and whatever.
Yeah.
So the Jehovah's Witnesses believe, much like I do, when you die, you just die. Mm-hmm. You go away. And then your soul is kind of set aside for Judgment Day. And that on Judgment Day, when all of the apocalypse happens, everyone will be sorted, and that people
the sorting hat from Harry Potter comes.
Well, kind of.
To reckon.
I don't know how their sorting works, but more or less, you would have had to have lived a good life, and they just, to them, they pattern themselves as how you should live a good life, not necessarily that you should live their good life.
Yeah.
Unless you get involved with them, and then it's very cult-like. Yeah. In the Bible, it says 144,000 anointed ones will join God at the right hand of Jesus in the kingdom of heaven.
That's not very many.
144,000.
How much they selling them seats for? That's an expensive.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. They don't actually sell them for anything, but the, you know, people who live their life well in the view of their church are expected to be among the 144,000, whereas biblical scholars say those 144,000 were already chosen from tribes of Jews a long, long time ago. So probably don't count on the seats. Depends on how you stand on that thing. Everybody else who has lived a good life will actually live on a paradise earth. Earth will be recreated and perfect, and everybody you've ever loved will be here, which will be impossible. There'd be too many people here. But
do you know how big the planet is?
But then everybody else who didn't do a very good job being good people will just not exist.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm very much into the sciences and math, and like the realist in me says, nah, just void, nothing, right? Yeah. But the optimist in me wants there to be, like, I know that what we know to be fact, or what we've proven with science and math, that it's extremely unlikely that there is any sort of afterlife because of how matter functions in reality in the universe, right? You can't create it or destroy it. It just transforms into one form or another. That being said, there's the fact that we exist and that we're sentient, or at least we think so. Maybe this is a fucking simulation. Who knows? The fact that, like, it has come to be how it has is such a fucking coincidence. I'm pretty sure this is a true quote from Watson and Crick, the guys who created the DNA model. One of them was quoted saying that it's more likely that a fully functional F-16 jet would be assembled by a hurricane traveling through a junkyard than it is for the DNA model to have assembled in the primordial soup. I've been quoting this shit for a long time, so I'm really sorry, and I'd be really disappointed if it's not truth.
Somebody actually put a number to it once. I read the number. It was like 54 trillion, something, whatever. 1 in 54 trillion, that we would be able to be created, that there'd be a genesis for it. My friend was like, the reason I believe in God is because I don't think it's possible that human beings would exist as life without God to assemble us because of the infinitesimal possibility of us even existing based on the creation theories.
Yes.
And to me, I say that is a completely moot discussion because no matter how small the probability of something, we are already here, and you need to deal with that reality.
Yeah. It's just such a fucking crazy coincidence, and I don't know.
How many other times didn't it happen in the ever-expanding universe?
There's a long fucking time, right?
Yeah.
And Mistakes is one of my favorite shows. Westworld, our favorite quote that I have from that is, sentient life was forged on planet Earth using one tool, the mistake. And I think given enough time, just trying every option. Yeah. I don't know. I go back and forth. I don't know what the fuck happens. Probably nothingness, just void.
We are a teardrop on the face of the universe. We will exist and then be winked out of existence, hopefully by a better species than us. To answer a question that you had on a previous episode, the last one, I think alien life does exist, but not necessarily as we have to define it. It could be completely different or whatever, but the amount of animals and shit in the world, we're still counting. We don't know all of them.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten deep enough into the ocean that we're still finding some really cool shit at the place we can discover shit.
Yeah.
And there's stuff even further down. God, there's probably stuff in the core of the planet we don't know about.
Yeah.
And
magma monsters.
Yeah. And how would it be possible that not a single other being would be out there?
I'm the same boat. To answer my question from last time, where did that single molecule come from?
What single molecule?
Well, isn't the Big Bang Theory that at one time there was nothing, and then there was a single molecule, and then the single molecule expanded and contracted, and so on?
Yeah.
Here we are. Like, there was nothingness, and there was something.
The problem is, was there nothingness, or was there something in a way that we can't define it?
That's a faith thing, though.
That's not necessarily a faith thing. It's just a placeholder for
we don't
explanation.
have the numbers or science.
Just because you don't have the answer to something to say to be continued isn't necessarily a bad thing. To say, well, we don't have a starting point, so obviously it was God.
Must be some fucking.
Well,
I'm
not saying it's God. I'm just saying it's like it sounds crazy to say that there was always something, because that's kind of like saying there was always God. You know. If there was always matter there and there was always, like, the universe, it's the same thing as saying, like, there was always a God and then he created the universe.
Well, what's outside of the universe?
Maybe God.
we could ask that question. What's outside of the universe? Well, we don't know, so we can't define it. Yeah. We only have the specifications that we have here. And in the same way that we created life in the primordial soup, when single-celled bacterial organisms just suddenly started multiplying, and we ended up with multi-celled organisms, and we ended up with fish or whatever,
Yeah.
The creation of those things is probably just a dichotomy, the same microcosm of what had happened on a macro scale. Mm-hmm. Just because we couldn't define how or why doesn't mean it didn't happen with elements that we don't know about.
Yeah.
It's just not to say, well, it had to be God is so intensely definitive.
Right.
And we're going to base how I'm going to kill you on that belief.
Yeah.
Fucking wild.
That's where things become painful. So I love to ask that question: what created whatever molecule? I don't know. Maybe it was just a byproduct of two other undefinable universes, undefinable existences, becoming I don't know, intensely rubbed against each other. Maybe those things still exist. Maybe that's what's outside of our universe. Maybe we bump into them, explode everything, start all over again. Mm-hmm. Maybe all there is another universe out there where we'll get big enough, it will run into the other one, and then we'll start another big bang into a bigger universe.
But you can keep going back with that. Be like, where did that universe, where's that? Where did that start? How does it start?
How can you define something if you don't know the timeline? If you can ask the question infinite amounts of times, where do you even have to worry about the question?
So, if you're asking an infinite amount of time, like, eventually there would be nothing, correct?
Not necessarily.
It has to come from somewhere based on what we know, right?
This is the problem: is we define time based on our understanding of time, and which is something that changes. It's flexible even based on what we know about time. Time is relative. Time here, time in space, time next to a black hole.
Have you seen Interstellar?
We base everything on like relativity.
And there's nothing to say that time has to exist in the way that we look at it, because we're corporeal. We look at ourselves as corporeal beings. We have a definitive timeline. But even within our own definitive timeline, our enjoyment or our disappointment or our boredom defines how we experience time. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing to say that that doesn't also happen on a universal scale.
Yeah.
So what is time defined when there's no gravity?
Yeah.
What is time? Like, we have gravity in space. It's the only thing that keeps time going. And when you have such an intense amount of gravity in space, like next to a black hole, time becomes so distorted that it doesn't mean anything anymore. And who's to say what infinite means, except it could be a cycle over and over again. The same thing. We might do this again 23 trillion years from now.
Right. The thing I'm saying is, like, all of that goes against everything we know as human beings based on the laws of the universe, basically. Like, as we know it, as we've defined it, as we've...
Well, we used to think the rock was an element included in
Yeah, I'm not saying we're very smart. I'm just saying, like, we have all these beliefs based on the way we think things are and how we logically quantify everything we know. So, like, who's to say? I'm just like playing the other, like,
the devil's advocate.
Even though I'm not a religious person.
Yeah.
But
it's a legitimate question to ask. It's not an illegitimate question.
Yeah.
The problem is that we can't define what more time means until we can define a legitimate set time for something.
I'm just saying, if we don't understand that, how can we, like, be so confident that we understand how, like, consciousness or human beings work, or what this even means, what this, like, what life is.
We don't, like, we're not super competent with consciousness. There's things that are measurable and observable, right? Like, the building blocks of science are that you can observe, record, test, and then people can repeat that. And if it's repeated enough times and the same result occurs every time, so it's considered fact. The fact that we could be in a manipulable universe, right? If we're in a fucking simulation right now, in some other sentient beings simulation, then nothing could be true.
Yeah.
Like, anything could appear at any time, and there's no
that's what I'm saying.
natural laws of existence. But the fact that that's so fucking the theory of Plato's theory of the cave, right? Where you can't ever get out of your own head and experience somebody else's existence, that you have to take what you have, study it, learn it, and expand upon it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could be like every single person you ever meet in your entire life could just be some fucking NPC that God threw at you to see what would happen. Mm-hmm. It could be God.
Oh my God, I'm more scared of that person than any other person. Have you seen what I've done to NPCs in games?
Or the devil.
I have killed so many innocent people.
God.
I always felt bad about that. Like, you guys ever play Fable, where you grow horns if you do bad and you get, like, a halo if you do good?
Play Mass Effect.
It's probably, I don't know. It's probably the same thing.
Mm.
For some reason, I felt awful killing NPCs.
You should.
I mean,
you should.
I couldn't do it. I don't feel that at all in GTA, which is weird. It's really fun.
That's because they don't have an existence. They're just people who tell you to go fuck yourself when you try to steal their car.
I suppose.
There's no backstory.
There's nothing. As soon as you turn around in GTA, you can come back to the same corner, and the same person who was standing there could be a different character model, because it's just winked in and out of existence. Mm-hmm. In Fable, there's a persistence to someone's existence. In the same way that we appreciate the persistence of your existence or my existence in someone's life, that disappearing, the missing of someone is probably the greatest tragedy.
It's crazy how we are so deeply connected to all of these made up beings, dude. Like, how many things you see on Facebook, somebody who never existed was made up by somebody, like, say Stan Lee, and then Superman said something and you see a picture of Superman with a quote on it. It's kind of like Stan Lee. Like, basically I'm saying it's ridiculous how much of an an attachment we have to people who don't exist. And how sad, like when Dom died in Gears of War, dude, I almost started fucking crying.
What is spoilers?
Yeah, Jesus Christ, Brandon. God.
Whoops.
One of those things that I think is really a good question to ask, because we keep talking about, like, is life a simulation? How do you define life, and where do we come from? And what is the definition of something that you attach your feelings to. Because the truth is, we'll attach feelings to anything. A car, a pair of speakers, a fucking pencil.
Have you seen the episode of My Strange Addiction where the guy
I
fucks
knew you were
his
going
car?
right there.
Gross. No, I didn't.
Ah, so awesome. I used to have that car, and my mom, I shared it with my mom, and the fucking cassette that my mom had was an REO Speedwagon cassette, and his favorite song that he had with his car was Can't Fight This Feeling by REO Speedwagon. Too many fucking shared similarities.
Maybe it's the same car.
It's me, alright?
Guitars.
I'm the guy who fucks the car.
Your guitars. Which one is your favorite?
So, okay, so...
I can't pick just one.
Yeah, you can. There's one that you could not part with.
I could part with it.
You could part with it.
I don't attach to physical things at all. For some reason, I don't know if it's because I grew up with, like, out shit, or I was never taught to, like, care about stuff. My dad cares a lot about, like, guns and bows and those sort of things, but I could lose everything today and it'd be like, I would get new shit. It's really fucked up in that way. I mean, I'd be sad and stuff, but it wouldn't, like,
well,
crush
you'd be
me.
sad, but no, it's not necessarily about crushing you. Like, the same way you feel about the NPCs. You're not going, oh, fuck, I just killed Cindy.
I would be more sad to see, like, a rabbit get run over than if I lost my guitar.
But you should. That was a loss of life.
I guess. To attest to this guy's lack of attachment to things, he bought this Mazda Speed 3, and it was fucking awesome, right? Like, he was having a blast driving it. I rode in it. I was like, yeah, this is cool as fuck. Had it for, like, a week. And we're driving back in the rain, and the road looks really fucky, so we, like, drive straight through a curb, and somebody T-bones him, totals the car a week after having it, and he's just like, oh shit, is everybody alright? I'm like, totally not worried about the car, total bro move, should be your first reaction, but then it was just like, yeah, whatever. And I was like, dude, if I just got this car and I fucking loved it, the car that I have, I love it, and I hit 2 deer. I bought it brand new, which you should never do. Never buy a brand new car. But I hit 2 deer on separate occasions the first year that I had that car, and I lost my fucking shit, right? Went postal, and he's just like, oh, yeah.
But at the same time, I think there's 2 different types of attachment, because I think you were attached to the idea of the car versus him being not necessarily attached to the car yet. Mm-hmm. I think people, and maybe you'll never get attached to a car because I know how you go through cars. But like, I've got a friend who's had a car since 2004. She purchased it brand new. It's a Saturn Ion, and she's had it. I don't remember actually what the name of that car was. And she has a name for the car, and like, she's had it all the way through these other relationships. She's had it. She's moved from Arizona and back. She's lived all these different things. She's done all these different jobs. She's always had that car, and all these things were wrong with it. She had a permanent check engine light. One of the days, she had the accelerator got stuck on because the sensor for that just decided, oh, we're on now. And like, the seats didn't fold back down anymore because the locks are broken and whatever. And her dad fixed up a bunch of shit, and she's like, oh my god, it's really nice. It's like this really, it's like I've had this, all this time. And the car operated in the way that she imagined. There was nothing wrong with it. She loves that car. But she's always hated that car. She's like, my car is slow, my car, whatever. Her dad took the car to change the oil, because he always likes to do it manually and, take care of a few things. Took the car to change the oil, started going for a test drive. He got the sun in his eyes. He ended up he ran right into another car. And it didn't really, because it's a Saturn, she kind of bounced off of it, but a bunch of the plastic broke. You know how Saturns are.
Straight plastic.
And he called her and like, look, I got some really bad news. I'll see you soon. And he drives up, and she saw the car, and she just fucking exploded into crying, because she had such an attachment to this car, which has, you could call it a personality, but it has no conscience, no semblance of being. It's just a thing that she's done with all the time.
It's been loyal, though.
What is the thing that we miss? What we care for? The most important gift that we have as a human being is to care for something. And to be able to attach those feelings to something created to be a human being, whether it be in a movie or a video game or a piece of music or art, is such a beautiful experience. You should never minimize that. You should always say, hey, that's really wonderful that I was given that gift from this artist.
Yeah.
So why not?
Why
not? Why not care about somebody who doesn't exist and is just a fake Facebook profile?
Fuck it.
If it makes you happy.
I was going to ask you at the end of the podcast what you believe.
Like an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, seriously. We've been talking for like 2 hours. People stopped listening fucking an hour and 47 minutes ago, because
My
13
heart rate is
minutes
so
in.
high that my watch thinks I'm working out.
Oh shit.
Yep.
But I was gonna ask you what you think the key to living a fulfilled life is, but I'm pretty sure you already answered it like 3 or 4 times over.
Yeah.
If you want to kind of sum it up and wrap it up and put a little bow on it, is there any like a few phrases?
In the same way we can talk about things like mental health. It's not for everyone. You can't tell everybody what to do. But if you can find a way to love everyone, you can find a way to love yourself. And I think if you can find a way to love yourself, it's not necessarily happiness that you find, but you can find a satisfaction. Well, what's wrong with that? And it's like we could talk about the sound of someone's voice, because I do like voiceover stuff, and that's why I do the Twitch stuff. And I'm I'd love to do a podcast just because I think that's something I wanted to share. Not my voice in particular, but like the things that I wanted to say to people. That you could love yourself, that you can love your voice. If you listen to yourself enough and stop looking at your flaws, you can stop looking at the flaws of other people.
Yeah.
So be at peace
That's fucking
with
beautiful.
you. Be you. Be okay with that. Everybody wants to be somebody else. Everybody wants to be someone else. Everybody wants to be Bill Gates or Kim Kardashian or Chris Pine. I'd love to be Chris Pine.
Xander Cage.
Xander Cage.
Pining.
Welcome to the Xander Zone.
I'm pining over Chris Pine.
Right. But the truth is, no matter how you perceive yourself, there is only one you. And you might fit into other tribes of some sort, and you might be an amalgamation of certain types of things, and you might find another person who is exactly like you, but there is only you. So enjoy that. That's special. And I think that is if you can find that, you can find so much more in you can be selfish. It's okay to be selfish. You can find so much more in appreciating other people.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
That was a
How about you?
fucking
You
task.
should make a religion about that.
I tried. It's expensive to start early.
That's so expensive.
So expensive.
It's such a good way to make money, though.
Yes, it is.
I think that's a beautiful note to end on.
Yeah, if you wanna end on that one.
I think
Love
we
everybody.
should. Everybody stop listening.
You don't want to hear
15
Kyle's
minutes
You're
in.
gonna have
key
to.
to fulfillment?
Fuck, man, you can't ask me that. I wasn't prepared. No, I think that I share a lot of sentiments with what you said. Should we want to give it up right now? We should like make that
Nah,
the last
you're-
ever episode.
We'll leave that a mystery.
Yeah, we should like save that to the very bitter end when we have to end the podcast because we're old and
So you're gonna
washed
guarantee
up.
that I have to listen to all of
Yeah,
this?
I'm not. No. I'm not some cheap tart. All right, you ain't getting it on the first date. You're gonna have to wait.
You know what?
Bowie.
You know what? I'm gonna challenge you to ask this question of every person who comes on this podcast.
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
I love the responses.
Yeah, we're actually talking about
Soleil's
that.
was good. Yours was even better. Fuck you, Soleil. Number 2. You're last place.
Champion!
Last.
You're also got the silver medal, so good job.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. Gold or silver is the same. Precious metals.
You're both on the stage.
I'm not gonna sell mine, so what are we really?
Cool. Well, we super appreciate everyone who's listening, and we
If you're
super
still
appreciate.
listening, why the fuck have you not stopped yet? Jesus
It's
Christ.
because I don't stop talking. That's
Go
what
do
happens.
something better with your life. Just
Super
kidding.
appreciate you coming on the show.
Hope
It means
this
everything.
makes-
It's fun getting together
Yeah,
again.
thanks, Ron.
No,
God
totally.
damn
Thank
it.
you.
Woo!
Thanks, man.
Fuck yeah. Next time, motherfucking
Motherfucking
bird plane. Dave, man.
It is such a.
I forgot it's recording.
Dude, he did that last time. It was so funny. Oh shit, I forgot to save the video.